SpongicX here with my next review in the Mario Party franchise. In today's episode, we're looking at Mario Party Advance, which was technically the first portable entry of Mario Party. There was this obscure game called Mario Party E for the Game Boy Advance, but it required the Game Boy Advance's failure of an accessory called the e-reader, where we attached this device called the e-reader to our Game Boy Advance cartridge slot. We had to slide these exclusive cards into the e-reader to scan them, to convert their data into playable classic NES games like Donkey Kong Jr., along with like exclusive Pokemon cards that can unlock these mini games, and even extra levels and items for certain games like Super Mario Advance 4, feeling kind of like a primitive version of what we call today DLC, downloadable content. The e-reader was arguably the worst Game Boy Advance accessory ever made. It was just an overpriced and inconvenient waste of money. I remembered having one and it was terrible. It was annoying to have to constantly scan multiple cards in a specific order every time just to play a game like Donkey Kong Jr. So, luckily Virtual Console on the Wii gave us an easier and cheaper way to play these classic games, although that's kind of dead now, but we do have Nintendo Switch Online nowadays. Mario Party E is one game I will not be able to review, for it's a game that requires physical assets like the e-reader itself, a board map, and a card pack. It wasn't much of a game anyways from what I heard. It was more of just like some kind of card game, board game that had some playable mini games that required the Game Boy Advance, but yeah, it doesn't sound like it's worth the effort of buying or tracking down. So let's skip the most unheard of Mario Party game, and let's move on to the other Game Boy Advance one, which many have dubbed one of the worst Mario Party games ever made, Mario Party Advance. Released in 2005, the exact same year as the GameCube's last entry, Mario Party 7. This is the most divisive entry in the series, for it barely resembles any of the past games. It is focused on a single-player experience, though it does have some multiplayer functionality, but many of these modes were limited where they required another player to have their own Game Boy Advance and their own copy of the game, along with a link cable, so yeah, not the most convenient way of playing multiplayer. So the beloved adventure board maps from the past 7 games are gone, and we're left with nothing but a single-player mission mode, mini-games, challenge modes, and small useless unlockables called gadgets that do absolutely nothing valuable. If I could compare this to any other game that's been made, I guess the best I could come up with is, does anyone remember both Beauty and the Beast or the Winnie the Pooh game that was made for Game Boy Color? It's almost the exact same thing, where it's a game that plays like a board map. It's a single-player board game, but then it has like these little mini-games you gotta play in between. That's what it kind of reminds me of. I could have sworn I heard this game was added to Nintendo Switch Online's Game Boy Advance catalog, but I couldn't find it on there. Maybe I got it mistaken for the Wii U had it on Virtual Console, but that's no longer available since the Wii U online servers have been shut down. So this will probably be my shortest review in the Mario Party series, because I'm not going to bother going in-depth over an hour of time on a game that's really not worth going in-depth over. I'll go over all of the mini-games, but I'm not going to go over all the single-player missions or gizmos. There's like 50 missions you got to do all together. It's just repetitive and mind-numbing. This game has the smallest roster in the series, with only Mario, Luigi, Peach, and Yoshi as playable characters. That's 2 characters less than both Mario Party 1, and even less characters than the awful e-reader game. The composer for Mario Party 3 and 4 returns, as they remade a bunch of the music from those games into chiptune form, so at least the soundtrack is decent. Honestly, one of the best original tracks made for this game is in the gadget mode. As useless as the gadgets were, I do like the music in that menu. So the game's visuals aren't bad. There's still a bunch of fun characters based on Mario baddies throughout the game. I mean, I think this is the first time you saw a lot of these characters in a sprite form, like the Womps from Mario 64. This is the first time I recall ever seeing them in sprite form. So yeah, it's really cool to see all these enemies that you're so familiar with. I remember this game was a good introduction for a lot of these characters, because back then I didn't know who their names were, but because they're so heavily focused in the story mode here, it got me to learn and recognize their names. So like, who would have guessed that the shark creatures that were shown in like Mario 64 or Mario Party 2, who would have guessed that their name was Sushi? So Tumble from Mario Party 3 even returns as the host for story mode. So the story involves a place called Party World, and it's under attack by Bowser and his Koopa kids as they steal all 50 of Professor Egad's gadgets and scatter them across a town called Mushroom City. It's up to our heroes to get them back as they roll dice blocks to drive around in a car, stop by places to solve mysteries, do fetch quests, play minigames, and recollect all the missing gadgets in order to take Bowser down. The game feels very similar to a point-and-click adventure game, minus the point-and-clicking, and with a bunch of board game gimmicks and minigames thrown in. The gameplay is very repetitive, and it gets worse the further we progress. You start off with only 5 lives in the form of mushrooms, and you lose a mushroom every time you roll a dice. And if we run out of dice, we lose and we have to start all over. We still get to save the progress for all the missions that we've completed. But if we're in the middle of a mission and we didn't get it complete, that means that we got to do it all over. And that's real annoying because a lot of these missions require going from one place and going through a bunch of unskippable cutscenes. Sometimes there might be multiple choice answers that are required to continue forward. Once we get the mission started, we then got to go to another place on the other side of the map. And that can take a number of turns to get there, and there's a lot of interruptions that can get in the way. And so, yeah, it's real annoying if you lose a mission after all that time, then you're forced to start all over. So it's not a very fun single-player experience. There are 3 character-specific missions, one that requires either Luigi or Mario, one that requires Peach, and one that requires Yoshi. The problem is that there is no option to swap these characters without starting a new game. Luckily, starting a new game will keep records of the missions we've completed and all the boss fights we've completed, all the gizmos we've collected and all that, but it resets your mushroom count and your location upon restarting, so you still gotta do a lot of grinding to get enough mushrooms so you can make it there on time. Yeah, it's best to only start a new game to swap characters after you've collected all that you can with just one character, and then when you're down to just those character-specific missions, that's when I would suggest starting a new game. Some of these missions are very easy, but others are brutal and not fun at all. Some missions require you going through lengthy dialogue and fetch quests, followed by a minigame. And if you mess up the minigame, like I said earlier, the characters suddenly get amnesia, and you gotta start the whole quest over without being able to skip these cutscenes and dialogue. There's once again a lot of dumb luck events in this game, including awful gambling casino games that don't belong in a family game. Some of the character dialogue is pretty humorous, but once you've beaten this story mode, there's nothing left to do. It won't give you any reason to want to come back and start all over. It's just boring. I don't see anyone in their right mind wanting to go through all this torture again. Some of the most annoying ones are the mystery-themed ones. The mysteries feel less like they take educated guesses and more like dumb random guesses. And if you fail to pick the wrong suspect or deduction, you're forced to restart the whole event, rewatching the cutscenes and dialogue that came before. It's real annoying. There's a lot of this in this game. Some of the mysteries are funny though, like a sushi getting worried because someone fell off a cliff and landed in the water. Now let that sink in. A shark being worried because someone fell into shark-infested waters. I can't help but give a chuckle over that. The games get worse the closer you get to the finish. For Koopa Kid starts spawning every 2 turns to either challenge you to rock, paper, scissors, where he'll steal a mushroom from you if you lose, or he'll summon Bowser to warp us back like 100 spaces, which is real frustrating when you're trying to get the last 2 objectives done, only for Bowser to keep sending us away, and there's no way to avoid this. It really takes dumb luck. After a certain number of gadgets are reclaimed, a warp pipe in front of Bowser's castle will open up, which leads to a challenge and boss minigame against the Koopa Kids. There's 8 of these warp pipes altogether, and we need to complete all of them in order to get to the final boss, along with needing to collect all 49 gadgets before getting to the final boss as well. And then what's our reward for getting them all back and beating Bowser? All we get is the final gadget, which isn't even a gadget, it's just an autograph of Bowser's footprint. What the heck? Since when are pieces of paper gadgets? Speaking of gadgets, they're some of the most useless unlockables I've ever seen. They're trying to act like there's so much fun to be had with these, and there's like 50 to collect, but they're just mindless apps that no one will want to spend more than 5 seconds on. Most of these equal the equivalent of watching paint dry. There's a challenge mode where we can play a tournament of the game's mini-games, but on even harder difficulties, as we're challenged to keep playing and double or nothing our coin prizes. We can spend those coins on exclusive gadgets that are not worth the hassle to unlock. The hardest to unlock gadget is just an animated sprite of the superstars from the past games. It's like it's taunting players over the thing that's missing from this game's gameplay. There are no stars or coins to collect in the story mode or mini-games. The coins are exclusive to the gambling challenge modes. On to the mini-games in Playland. Despite how most of the mini-games are single-player, with only a few 2-player options, the mini-games in this are overall decent, but some are very frustrating to play outside of story mode. Story mode uses shorter and easier versions of these minigames, but in minigame replay mode, they are even longer and harder to beat than before. It's cool how most of these games save our best records though. Starting off with the regular 4-player minigames, there's 30 of these altogether. Bye-Bye is a survival challenge where we have to evade the boos and lure them into the paintings that match their color. Grab It has us trying to catch the most rabbits by chasing and diving to grab them before they hop back into their holes. Careful not to crash into any walls or you'll get dizzy. It can be tricky, but it still beats chasing the rabbits from Mario 64. Chomp Walker is a fun idea, but incredibly challenging. We're tasked to try walking a chain chomp as far as we can, while making sure to dodge his attempts to charge at us, along with having him avoid eating bones, which will just slow him down. We want to lure him to try eating some meat though. It will supercharge him to move a lot faster. Cloud Climber is a time trial minigame to see how fast we can bounce off of these clouds and springs to reach a goal while avoiding amps. Barrel Peril is basically Sneak and Snore from Mario Party 2 done right. Sneak and Snore was an annoying dumb luck minigame with overpowered CPU. Barrel Peril has similar gameplay as we race to the finish while hiding in barrels before Chain Chomp can ram us. Unlike Mario Party 2, where getting caught eliminates us, along with having very delayed animations every time we try hiding. This game lets us hide in the barrels quickly by holding the A button and letting go to pop back out. Even if we're already caught, we can still protect ourselves by diving into the barrel. There's no delayed animation for that, so yeah, that's really cool. I like this minigame a lot better than that awful Mario Party 2 minigame. Big Popper is a fun one where we try fanning bubbles into spikes while trying to make sure that none of the bubbles touch the ground. Our score multiplies if we pop many bubbles in a row quickly. Forest Jump is a tricky one where strong gusts of wind change directions that try blowing us away as we try jumping over or ducking under logs that come flying at us. Switchway is a rather annoying one where we have to either jump from underneath a platform or ground pound on top of it to make it move horizontally or vertically in order to reach a goal. This one isn't so hard on solo mode, it's just long and boring if anything, but I honestly gave up on playing it in the play mode. The course is bigger and longer and I got stuck and lost and yeah, I just lost interest. I didn't care about making it to the goal, I got bored. Amplified is a survival challenge where we try seeing how long we can last without getting zapped by the amps. It would have been better if it wasn't a Game Boy Advance minigame. I never liked moving characters in 3D spaces with only a D-pad. I prefer using a joystick. Fling Shot is a tiring one where we can alternate between the A and B buttons to fire ourselves out of a giant slingshot as we tilt up or down to try flying into these horizontal whirlwinds in order to boost us further. The vertical whirlwinds will give us an extra height boost, but they slow us down in the process, so it's best to avoid the vertical whirlwinds. Spooky Spike has us diving in 4 directions with the D-pad to try bouncing back the Boo's volleyball spikes. Ba-Boom is a tricky one where we have to time things right to drop bob-bombs in order to blow up these Bowser statues below us. The bottom ones are the toughest ones to get right. Real Cheap is real easy. As we move our fishing rod towards the fish shadows, once a fish bites, we input random L and R button prompts to reel in the fish. Our goal is to earn the most points from the heaviest fish. Shell Stack has us jumping on Koopa shells fired out of cannons as we try making the tallest tower out of Koopa shells without getting hit. Bill Bounce is a fun one where we try racking up combos by hopping off of 3 rows of bullet bills. Bunny Belt has us pressing D-pad and button inputs to create the most stuffed bunnies. Pesticide feels like a Game & Watch game as we have to use the D-pad to protect 4 sunflowers by pressing A to water them and pressing B when they're infested with insects so we can spray them away with pesticides. Melon Folly is a hop puzzle where we need to hop across these rafts to collect watermelons, save the melon for last. The raft sinks as soon as we jump on them, so it doesn't give us much of a chance to jump back, nor does it give us much time to strategize on the paths we should take ahead of time, for there's a time limit. Sort Stack has us use the A and B buttons to hold up to 2 books as we try putting books back on their respective shelves with their matching colors. It's a decent time challenge, but it would have worked better with the L and R buttons in my opinion. On the Spot is a memory game where a Womp shows us parts of his back that he wants rubbed as we mimic the pattern shown with the D-pad. This would have worked better as a minigame on Mario Party DS with touchscreen controls. Koopa Crunch is a simple match 3 or more colored puzzle block game. There's these pesky Koopa shells that can only be cleared out with a red shell, but the red shell barely ever spawns. It's not the best puzzle game in the series, but it's not the worst either. This was probably the minigame I played the most back then. We lose if our screen gets filled with blocks and shells. Floor It is a fun elevator minigame where we open the left and right doors of an elevator as we use the D-pad to ride up and down in order to pick up guests and drop them off on their designated floors. It can be overwhelming as we get sidetracked by more coming, as we scramble over who would be the quickest and easiest character to deliver first in order to get the best high score. Dreadmill's an okay challenge where we run across 2 lanes of direction-changing conveyor belts as we race to the goal while avoiding being slowed down by spike traps. StompBot.XL is the most misleading minigame title. It gives the impression that we have to use a stomping robot to stomp on something. Instead, we're just driving a tank-like vehicle inside of a volcano as we try staying ahead to dodge this lava. It only gives us 3 HP, which feels so pointless, since bumping into rocks, walls, and lava pools will drastically slow us down, not giving us much of a chance to pick up more speed and evade the lava. Pogo a Go-Go is my least favorite minigame here. It's just way too tricky. We need to pogo to the goal under a time limit while watching out for rising piranha plants or fireballs. Trying to time the A button right to get a super bounce is just very tricky, and the obstacles can be very hard and unpredictable at times, so not a fan of it. Sled Slide is a top-down sled race as we have to hold the A button to accelerate and press the B button to pull on the brakes while making turns, or our sled will spin out of control and it'll slow us down. Flippin' Out has us holding the D-pad in different directions as we press the A button to swing and jump off of many pegs in order to reach a goal. It's simple, but fun. I prefer swinging gameplay like this compared to ones that require perfect timing or momentum, or actually having to swing like the control stick back and forth in order to get momentum, you know. So yeah, I kind of prefer swinging gameplay like this in comparison. Sea Monkey is a top-down boat race that requires us to collect all the ukikis that are trapped in the water. Turning can be tricky, and trying to get all the ukikis without missing one is quite challenging, but it's okay. Out of My Way is another one of my least favorite minigames. It's just so bloated and boring. I gave up on it after getting stuck. This one requires us to platform through a maze as we push thwomps, lure womps to fall over so we can jump on them, along with punching down pokies in order to find the goal. This minigame is just slow and boring. It was easy in story mode, but it's confusing in play mode. I couldn't find the exit this time, and I just quit not caring. Broom Zoom has us flying on a witch's broom as we try to fly through as many rings as we can while dodging amps. Now on to the 8 duel minigames. Admittedly, the 30 standard minigames were overall decent, but the duel games are pretty insufferable. Tank Down has us fighting with tanks in the dark, with barely any light source, as we try firing these giant boxing gloves at our opponents. Players have 4 HP each, and half their HP can be taken down with a Charge Blast by holding and releasing the A button, but Charge Blasts really slow down the player's mobility. Hammergeddon is a battle to hit our opponents with hammers 3 times. This wouldn't be so bad if the CPU didn't have the need to corner us into a wall each time. It's such a cheap and stupid move. They won't be able to hit us from that close, but it makes it near impossible for us to get around them so we can get far away enough from them to actually have our hammers hit them. Yeah, I don't like this one. Climb Stairs is a button masher as we race to escape from a collapsing set of stairs. Chicken is an unfun game of chicken, where the last one to run out before a thwomp crushes us is the winner. Chainsaw has us alternating between the L and R buttons to saw a chain off of a thwomp in order to have it crush our opponents before they crush us. We can't go too fast or our characters will grow tired and slow down. So it's best to slow your button input a little bit when you start seeing 3 beads of sweat coming off of your character's head. Volley Bomb has us whacking a bob-omb back and forth over a net with a hammer. If the volleying goes on too long, the bob-omb will blow up over time. The first to get bombed or fail to volley the ball 3 times loses. Koopa Curl is just 2 rounds of curling, but with Koopa shells. This minigame would have worked so much better if it weren't for the Game Boy Advance's limited screen space. If it actually gave us like a vertical view and was able to fit it all in one screen. Yeah, it doesn't feel like it really works for a sprite-themed gameplay. It would have worked better in a 3D game. Along with, it should have given us better visuals to demonstrate where the angles can bounce off for our shells, or how far the gauge will send our shells. There's better games of shuffleboard or curling out there. And Slammer is a quick time game where roulette will show one of two characters' faces. If that player's face shows up, they need to press the A button to try flattening the opponent with a giant hammer, while the opponent needs to press the B button fast enough to try bouncing back the attack. The player gets penalized if they press A or B on the wrong turn. This really should have been a case where whoever gets hit first loses, because each player is given 5 HP, so this minigame drags on longer than it needs to. On to the 6 Koopa Kid boss minigames. Mush Rush has us trying to defend 3 mushrooms from Koopa Kids, as we use the B and A buttons to swing hammers in different directions to try smacking away the Koopas. Crushed Ice has us moving a spiked sled to try ramming the Koopa Kids out of the arena. Peek and Sneak is a stealth-based event where we try sneaking past the Koopa Kids without being spotted. Splatterball is an arcade shooter where we shoot down the Koopa Kids, but we can only shoot 5 paintballs at a time, and we need to reload with the R button on occasion. Trap Floor is a juggling act of opening red and blue trap doors with the A and B buttons in order to drop Koopa Kids out of the game, while trying to prevent them from reaching the player. And Koopa Kappa has us trying to trap Koopa Kids with toy capsules by pressing matching buttons. There's also 6 gambling minigames, but I'm not going to bother going over each of them. They're all just boring and annoying, including things like slots, wheels, match'ems, coin drops, and other dumb luck crap. Overall, most of these 50 minigames are decent, with the only ones that are really worth playing being most of the 30 single-player minigames, and the Koopa Kid boss games aren't too bad, but the rest are boring and annoying garbage. And that was Mario Party Advance. It's arguably one of the worst Mario Party games, but is it a bad game? While the single-player mode is overall a boring, repetitive, and frustrating mess with too many minigames, terrible setbacks with its restrictions and strict rules and all that, there still is fun to be had here though. The gadgets really aren't worth the hassle of unlocking, but there is some fun to be had with a good chunk of the 50 minigames. There were more minigames in this than I remember. I could have sworn this game only had like 12 minigames, but the duel games and casino games are very forgettable and not worth replaying. But some of these 4-player minigames and Koopa Kid minigames, they are actually pretty fun for a Game Boy Advance game. So I can't quite call this a bad game, but I can't call it a good Mario Party game. I'll spare giving it the lowest D ranking, but I'll put it right behind Mario 7 on the bottom of the C list. Maybe someday Nintendo will add this game to the Nintendo Switch Online service so many other gamers can finally check this out and form their own opinions on whether it's the worst Mario Party game or an underrated gem. For me, it's an okay game, it just wasn't what I was hoping for with the first handheld Mario Party entry. But luckily, fans got a much better and proper handheld entry with the next handheld attempt, Mario Party DS, the first 3D handheld Mario Party entry, along with being the first one to use touchscreen controls. So I plan on covering the Wii U Virtual Console port of that game next time, but I might take a short break because as of the time that I am writing the script for this video, it is Christmas Eve, and in case I get any new video games for Christmas, I'll probably be spending some time trying those games out. So yeah, it might be a while before I resume this Mario Party review series, but either way, thank you all for watching and have a great day. SpongicX here, continuing my review series for the Mario Party franchise. Today, I'm going to talk about Mario Party DS, the second handheld entry, and the first 3D handheld entry. This is also the first entry to utilize 2 screens and touchscreen controls. Now, I apologize in advance for I was playing off the Wii U Virtual Console version, and the Wii U's DS Virtual Console has the worst screen options for this game. Mario Party DS requires a lot of functions and gameplay that require both the top and touchscreen, and back then they used to be lined up perfectly on top of each other, but the Wii U has lousy display options, which prioritize one screen size over the other, so it makes some of these minigames ridiculous to go through. There was one option to have both screens line up perfectly on the TV screen, but for some reason it forces the screen on the Wii U gamepad to flip sideways, and it makes it impossible to play that way, so yeah, there was also an option to shrink both screens onto a mock-up DS frame, but then that made it harder to see it on both the TV and even the Wii U gamepad, so yeah, I apologize for how lousy the presentation will look, with one screen being way bigger than the other. Many people shared their disappointment with Mario Party Advance for not adapting the beloved 4-player board map gameplay or the mini-games that the series is known for. Well, luckily Mario Party DS fixed that. This game has the board maps, the coins, the stars, and the mini-games. Considering how the DS is known for having the worst 3D graphics, it's surprising how good Mario Party DS actually looks compared to not only other DS games, but even the original N64 trilogy, despite how low res it is. The audio quality is pretty bad though, but then again, so was every other DS game. The DS just had terrible speakers. So the music in this game is very ear-grating. It has the same composers as Mario Party 6 and 7, and this is the worst music I've ever heard from them. I said how Mario Party 7's music was bland, but at least it didn't hurt to listen to. The roster is almost the exact same as the one from Mario Party 4, with 8 characters altogether, but Donkey Kong is once again not playable, but Toad is still here. Not as big as the roster in Mario Party 5, 6, or 7, but still an improvement over the lousy 4-character roster from Mario Party Advance. This game once again has a story mode that frustratingly requires us to come in first place across all the board maps. Once again, it's such a terrible requirement for a single-player mode, and it expects us to do this with all 8 playable characters if we want to 100% complete it. Completing the game with a character earns us a character trophy. This sadly has the lowest amount of board maps out of the entire series. Most Mario Party games have about 6 or 7 board maps. This one has only 5. They're the smallest board maps in the series, but the size doesn't really bug me that much. The story of this game is one of the most confusing and nonsensical plots ever for a Mario Party game. It could have worked for a 3D co-op platformer, but for a party game, it just doesn't add up. Bowser invites everyone to a dinner party and our heroes foolishly go along and get trapped, of course. Bowser uses a magic wand to shrink the cast and he throws them in a sack away like garbage as he journeys off to find these 5 magical sky crystals for who knows what for. And so our heroes decide they need a journey through this giant world to find Bowser, restore themselves back to their normal size while collecting the stones before Bowser does, and they decide to compete over doing it instead of working together. The idea of the cast being tiny is a fun idea, but it feels so shoehorned into a plot about trying to stop Bowser before he gets these magical crystals. I feel like it would have worked better if it was just he shrunk them and threw them into these little board maps and he decides to torture them like they're playing toys and they run around trying to, you know, evade Bowser. There's better ways they could have handled this narrative. They should have had it where Bowser is forcibly forcing these characters to fight each other. There's so much writing potential here and they wasted it. This feels more like a story meant for a 3D adventure platformer with multiplayer functionality, but the heroes should be working together to stop Bowser, not fight each other in board maps and minigames for no reason. I do love how all the board maps and minigames fit with the shrunken character theme. The world feels so massive, and I feel like the size theme was wasted on the DS. This would have looked so much cooler on Wii or Wii U with HD graphics, but the DS's low-res limitations really held it back from being a much grander Mario Party. I would love to see them revisit this someday with how much visuals have improved. Let's see a proper game of the Mario character shrunken down a size. That'd be really cool. Upon defeating each board map, we have to fight in a boss minigame, and not a single one of these are good. Some are just flat-out frustrating and tedious. The ending is very anticlimactic, where the heroes regain their size and they defeat Bowser's ridiculous boss fight. Our heroes tie up Bowser and Jr. as they combine all the crystals together, and they form into some crystal-looking DS with an exclusive new puzzle minigame. And Bowser is bummed out because he really wanted to play that game. So Mario and pals pity Bowser, and they invite him and his son to play along with them, and the game just abruptly ends. How pathetic and cheesy. Not a lot of changes to the board maps, except the spaces are now hexagon-shaped. The item orbs from Mario Party 5 through 7 have unfortunately been replaced with these underwhelming hex spaces, where we can create these cursed spaces that will punish opponents who land on them. Punishments like handing over coins or stars, trading coins, so they're almost like a replacement for chance time, except they're just limited to just hexes, basically. So we still get a double or triple or half dice block. We got an item that can steal items from other opponents. We got the star pipe that warps us straight to the star. So a lot of familiar items, but they've been rethemed. So there's just a lot less items than there were in the past few entries, so it just feels kind of underwhelming in comparison. There are these new spaces called the buddy spaces. Landing on them gives you 5 coins, but it forces you to pick another player to share another 5 coins with. It's a devious kind of thing to put in a game about dominating other players, and then being forced to share coins with another. It's kind of funny, actually. It's so devious, but so funny at the same time. The DK spaces are absent in this game. What's really neat is how most of the 4-player minigames were made to also work as dual minigames. There's the option to play the board maps in a lot of these minigames with only one-on-one. That's such a cool idea, having variants of 4-player and even some 2 versus 2 minigames that now only work as 1 versus 1 minigames. I wish other Mario Party games had this feature. There's something so cool about that. I mean, some 4-player games can really drag on, but when you limit it to just 2 players, the game goes by a lot quicker. And it can feel more competitive, more toe-to-toe. So yeah, I really kind of wish that they bring this feature back in every Mario Party game. There are just some mini-games that don't feel like they should be forced to have to require 4 players. I like the idea of them also working as 1 versus 1 mini-games. So let's move on to the mini-games. So upon beating mini-games, we earn these points, which can be added up to unlock 3D models of objects and characters from the board maps. Similar to the Smash Brothers trophies, more restrictive, basically you can't rotate them at like any angle. But some of them are animated, like the character trophies. You just like press the A button and they'll do a little animation. So honestly, some of the most fun unlockables in the Mario Party series. It goes back to something I said in a past video where I mentioned how cool it would be to get a Mario Party board map maker. If they ever do make a Mario Party maker, they need to bring back this feature of unlocking these 3D models that we see scattered across these boards. But this time they should allow us to drag and drop them into a 3D space so we can use them to customize our own board maps. That'd be a really cool idea. A lot of these features are so pointless though. It's like, oh, you got like the leaf from the background in this one level. That's okay, I guess, but how much cooler would it have been if that could have been used as a prop where we can drag it onto a 3D map and make our own level out of it? We can just decorate with all these different items. That would be so cool. I mentioned something similar in like what I would do if I were in charge of making another Smash Brothers game, and I said how I'd love for the trophies to have a similar feature where if they brought back the trophies, they should allow us to implant them into the stage builder where we can place them down and rotate them in different directions and basically make our own map. So like if we want to make a museum of our favorite fighters, or we want to try recreating Poke Floats, so we use Pokemon trophies or something. It's like there's a lot of fun you could do with that, and I hate how no Nintendo game has really tackled this idea. So onto the minigames. Starting with the 4-player minigames, Goomba Wrangler has us using the touchscreen to draw the most circles around the Goombas while avoiding the Bob-Ombs. So think of it kind of like a Pokemon Ranger, but less tedious. Rail Riders has us stroking up on the touchscreen as fast as we can for our characters to launch the farthest as they race down on these rails of a stairway. It's tiring, but visually fun. Dress for Success is a silly idea, but I do not like the gameplay of this. It's just a lousy memory match game. We're shown a deck of cards, with one having a body that matches a card with a character's head, but the body cards get scrambled around and we have to try finding the correct one that matches the head card. Camera Shy is a fun idea. It's a first-person shooter, but with a camera instead of a gun. We race around to try to be the first to take a picture of all 3 of our opponents. What ruins this minigame, aside from the DS's awful D-pad controls, is the charge limit, where we have to wait for our camera to charge up before we can take a picture, and it takes forever. These sluggish limitations really ruin what could have been a really fun minigame. I do love how we do get to see the winner's photos at the end. Some of them can come out kind of funny. Hedge Honcho has us swiping with the touchscreen to push through leaves in these hedges, as we try avoiding touching leaves with bees on them. If we find ladybugs, we gotta rub them to make them fly away. It's a simple but fun minigame, and it's got some pretty visuals at the end. Study Fall is a lame game of chicken. God, I'm so sick of games of chicken minigames. So we fall from a chalkboard and we have to press the A button closest to the marking on a chalkboard to activate our magnets without going too fast or too far ahead of it. So Domino Effect is a race to press the most button prompts to win a hopping race. Simple but fun. Cherry Go Round requires us to quickly draw circles with the touchscreen to throw our cherries the furthest. Thank goodness this didn't require circling the D-pad. Trace Cadets is the worst touchscreen minigame I've ever seen. I love most of the touchscreen games, but this one feels so unresponsive. We're supposed to draw these blocks and triangles to fill in the most shapes on our top screen, but most of the drawings don't seem to register. The squares are the easiest to draw, but I for the life of me cannot draw the dang triangles. No matter how hard I try, no matter how many times I do it over, they just don't register. This one sucks. Soccer Survival has us dodging giant soccer balls. Hot Shots has us using the touchscreen to pull back and aim and fire arrows at Bowser and Kamek targets for the most points, while trying to avoid the Toadette targets. Call of the Goomba has us needing to use the touchscreen to crank music to lure out the most Goombas. It's real tough to find and keep the right speed needed to attract the Goombas. You'll know you have it right when the music notes gain color. Pedal Pushers is a car race with the strangest controls, as we have to alternate between the D-pad and any of the 4 buttons, one after the other, to accelerate both pedals to accelerate our vehicles, while needing to slow down upon driving over ice. Roller Coasters is a race that requires us to stroke the touchscreen in different directions to roll our characters on top of these balls across the sandbox to reach the sandcastle at the other side. It plays very similarly to Pokemon Dash, but it's more forgiving, for it's only used for one short minigame instead of the entire game. Whompathon has each player running around to avoid getting crushed by falling whomps. Get the Let Out is a typical button masher to try making our mechanical pencils stick out the longest. Shortcut Circuit is a boring and frustrating one where we have to drag bridges with the touchscreen to guide our characters to collect the most coins, but the CPU can also use our bridges, stealing the coins that we laid out for ourselves, so it's really easy to slip up with this one. There were so many times where I tried grabbing it and somehow my stylus just kind of slid, and so I missed, and it's just overall annoying. Big Blowout requires players to blow as hard as they can into the DS microphone to blow out the most candles, so our players can hop across the D-lit candles to reach the goal. It's still better than any of the mic minigames from Mario Party 6 or 7. Trash Landing is a real dumb mixture of dumb luck and timing, as we pick a rope, swing across it, and press the A button at the right time to try letting go and landing on an object below. Cheap Chance is another dumb luck minigame of picking a rope and hoping that our rope has a fish on the other end or we lose. Twist and Route is a fun combination of needing to wind our toy cars with the touchscreen, while using the D-pad to steer our cars and avoid obstacles to reach the goal. The juggling of winding up the car and steering is actually pretty fun. Crater Crawl has us mashing the A button and moving left or right to climb out of a volcano while avoiding the shots of lava. Boogie Beam has us using the touchscreen to change poses on our character, depending on whether they have a spotlight on them or not. Parachute Gallery has us skydiving through shapes that match the shape shown on the top screen. This is really tricky, for the CPU are prone to bumping into you, which can make you miss your targets. Boo Tag is a fun game of tag where a player gets chased by these boos across a treasure chest. If tagged by a boo, the victim needs to tag someone else to pass the boo over. Whoever lasts the least amount of seconds tagged by a boo is the winner. Raft Riot has us racing these boats as we try avoiding bumping into the bouncy railings and buoys. All Geared Up has us platforming up the inside of a clock to reach the top. Now onto the dual minigames, which only appear when playing against one CPU player. So like if you just, when you go to minigame mode, you have the option to play with just one CPU or 3 CPU. So if you pick the 1 CPU mode, a few of these minigames will appear in what would normally be the 4-player section. So you cannot play these minigames in 4-player mode, although they possibly could have worked as one. So Dust Buddies has us being chased by a vacuum cleaner as we hop over obstacles and avoid running over ribbons. Soap Surfers is basically a one-on-one game of bumper balls, except we're surfing on soap bars in a sink, and the controls are obviously more slippery. Cyber Scamper has us racing through the dark as we run across light-up panels and watch out for the cliff falls. Sleep Sleuth has Shy Guy asking for certain candy as we use the touchscreen to drag and drop the candy that the Shy Guy asked for. Tidal Fools has us trying to collect the most coins while avoiding being washed up by tidal waves. There are more dual minigames in this, but I don't want to go over the minigames I already went through, but most all of the 4-player minigames and a few of the 2 vs 2 minigames are reworked as dual minigames, so this arguably has the most dual minigames out of any Mario Party entry. On a 1 vs 3, Power Wash has one player using the touchscreen control to rotate the hoses to try washing away the 3 other players as they try running and dodging. Peekaboo has one player compete against the other 3 to find the most boos that match the appearance of a picture on the top screen, as we navigate on the touchscreen with the D-pad and touch the boo once we found them. Fast Food Frenzy has one player using the touchscreen to drag and drop food items onto a conveyor belt as the 3-player team tries avoiding being pushed off the belt by the food. Trackstar is a pointless and tedious minigame where one player has to try running over the other 3 players within 3 turns, as each player, including the one on the train, has to pick a left or right tunnel, and we have to button mash to either try keeping up with the other players or try outrunning the train. It's just a whole tiring mess. Shuffleboard Showdown has one player using the touchscreen to try sliding casino chips into the other players to fling them out as they try evading. It's obviously more fun if you're the one on the 1-player side. Flash and Dash is a game of flashlight tag as 3 players try catching the single player through a maze. Rubber Ducky Rodeo is a painfully boring minigame as one player tries steering a rubber duck left and right to try knocking the CPU off of their rubber ducks. It's like the CPU are glued to the ducks. It's near impossible to shake them off no matter what maneuvers you try. Plush Crush has the 3-player team using the touchscreen to pick up and drop these plush prizes as they try crushing player 1, who tries evading. Rotisserie Rampage is the touchscreen clone of Shock Drop and Roll from Mario Party 2, as one player strokes the touchscreen up or down to try spinning the players off of a big piece of meat. Nothing to Luge is a luge race, as we press the L or R buttons to steer left or right through the wide turns. Penny Pinchers has one player running around to try collecting these falling coins while avoiding the pearls, as the players below try grabbing the coins with the touchscreen by touching them. And Gusty Blizzard has one player trying to freeze the other 3 players by blowing into the microphone, as the 3 players need to rub their characters with the touchscreen to prevent themselves from freezing. On a 2 versus 2. Soil Toil is a tricky yet fun challenge, as each player is in charge of controlling one half of their vehicle as they rotate the touchscreen to accelerate their wheels. Double Vision is a fun yet tricky one where each player needs to work together to draw a certain Mario baddie, so they can only color in the parts that match their assigned colors. Not only is drawing on the 3DS or Wii U touchscreen slick and tricky, but we're also under a strict time limit, which forces us to rush it. Because, you know, when I draw, I like to take my time, but then I look at the clock and I go like, oh shoot, and I gotta speed up. So, whoever gets the most accurate lines wins. It reminds me a lot of Crazy Cutters, but with touchscreen controls, and yeah, I love this one. It's so frantic, but so fun. Memory Mash is a boring 2 versus 2 memory match game. We've seen these done to death already so many times. Cube Crushers is a race for each teammate to punch through a maze of ice blocks, as they need to punch 2 separate switches at the same time to reach the next sets of rooms to reach the goal. Mole Thrill is an annoying race that requires each player to work together by pressing the A button to dig to escape from a giant Monty Mole. Pressing the A button at the same time as your partner allows for faster speed, but pressing A before the other player will either cause the player to dig higher or lower depending on their position, which can make digging to avoid bumping into rocks very tricky. This is not fun to play when you're paired with a CPU, that's all I can say. Sprinkler Scalers has us needing to press the same buttons as our partner to climb out of a sprinkler, as we press X to climb up, Y to rotate left, and A to rotate right, as we try avoiding bumping into nuts. Cucumber Jacks has us sliding the touchscreen left and right to cut up our cucumbers, and Hanger Management is a visually fun race as we race on these clothes hangers. Keeping perfectly in balance gives us a huge burst of speed, but we have to tilt left or right on the D-pad to avoid bumping into obstacles. Book It is a painfully slow race as we alternate between the 4 right side buttons to lift and rotate our partners to scale up a mountain of books. The CPU are way too slow, which ruins the flow of this minigame. Airbrushers is another painful 2 versus 2 minigame where we have to time the A button at the same time as our partner to flap our feather dusters to fly and collect coins. It's impossible for the CPU to match our movements, which just has us floundering through the air like idiots. Toppling Terror has both teams blowing as hard as they can into the microphone to try toppling a womp to crush the opposing team. Crazy Crosshairs is such a tricky shooting game where each player has to press the A button to stop an auto-moving X or Y axis movement. And the second player, as soon as they press the A button to stop their cursor, it automatically fires the gun as well. So the goal is to try to shoot the most spiders. The controls just feel so needlessly complicated. Shorty Scorers is a strange game of soccer where we can carry and jump with the ball as we try kicking it into our goals. We can even steal the ball by punching the other players. So basically it's the way that every kid wants to play soccer when they first try it out. On to the battle games. Cheap Chump has us swimming to avoid being swallowed up by Cheap Cheap. Star Catchers has us touching stars as they appear on the touchscreen. Whoever catches the most stars is the winner. Short Fuse is one of the dumbest minigames in this whole game. It's a dumb luck game of trying not to get bombed, similar to Bowser's Big Blast from Mario Party 2. The physics of this game make no sense, as we're supposed to blow into the microphone. Now you'd think blowing into the microphone would slow down the fuse. Instead, it speeds it up for some reason. What kind of reality is this? It's just a long, boring game of waiting for this misery to get over with. Globe Gunners was a minigame I used to like, but now I find it very boring. We run around a globe as we try shooting the opponents the most with like these little ink guns or something, so most often the CPU will fail to find or shoot anyone, making it feel too slow and boring. This would have worked better on a console with proper joystick controls. It's still a visually fun idea, just flawed in execution. Chips and Dips is another painfully slow and boring game of dumb luck as we pick a card and slowly watch each character rake in the chips based on the number off their cards. I wish they sped it up by allowing each player to collect their chips at the same time instead of slowly taking turns watching everyone slowly get their winnings. There's 3 rounds of this, so we gotta watch this stuff 3 times. You gotta watch people get their chips 12 different times. It's a slow, miserable mess. And on to the terrible boss minigames. Feed and Seed has us pressing the A button repeatedly to fly in the air as we try catching these seeds from a giant piranha plant. We try dropping them into the piranha plant's mouth as he inhales. It is so tricky to grab these seeds. The timing and movements are very tricky. It's easy to accidentally time things wrong and get hurt by the seeds because they'll explode on you if you don't grab them properly. And it's also easy to accidentally bump into another seed, which will cause the seed you're carrying to blow up. And, it is such a lengthy and exhausting minigame. I hate this one. And each boss minigame only gives us 5 HP, which makes these minigames more frustrating than they already are. We only have to hit the bosses like 3 times, except for in the final battle, but Hammer Chime is the least offensive boss minigame, but it could have been better. It's just a game of Simon as we mimic Hammer Bros' drum patterns with the touchscreen, as we try firing his music notes back at him to damage him. The problem I have is that the drums on our touchscreen are mirroring the Hammer Bros layout, and it kind of messes with your mind. It's especially harder when playing on the Wii U with how badly it lays out the screens. It was so much easier when you just had the top and bottom screen like on the original DS. Hexoskeleton is overall an easy minigame, but its wonky camera controls really give you a headache. As we try to ground pound on these switches to attack dry bones, but for some reason you ground pound on the switches and they don't register, but it's so faulty. I don't like this one very much. It's not hard though, it's just, it feels flawed regardless though. Book Bash is an arcade rail shooter. As we fly on a spell book, we dodge shelves and flying books as we shoot them down with ink. At the end is a boss fight with Kamek, so we have to dodge his spells and shoot ink into his face until his face gets all smudged up, and he ends up accidentally damaging himself as he throws a tantrum until a big book lands on his head. We have to do this 3 times. So this boss fight is admittedly easier on the Wii U. When you have the touchscreen enlarged, it makes it easier to see obstacles that you need to dodge. Because on the DS, when his face gets smudged and he starts throwing a tantrum, we can get hit by the green books that come flying towards us, and they were impossible to see on the DS. I remember, like, when I was playing this at a younger age, I was wondering, like, what the heck hit me? It's like I got hurt for no reason. And so when you're playing on the Wii U, it makes you realize, oh, there were books we had to dodge. I could not see this on the DS. It doesn't help that the books just blend in too well with the low-res backgrounds, but I had an easier time seeing it when playing it on the TV. And finally, Bowser's Block Party, the final battle in the story mode, and it's one of the most frustrating boss fights out of the entire Mario Party series. Terrible controls, slow camera, along with very low HP with very hard to dodge attacks. Bowser transforms himself into a bunch of blocks. Man, that's even dumber than when he turned himself into a cat or a flying castle. We dodge his fire and crushing attacks as we wait for him to flip to a side with a golden Bowser face exposed, and then we have to try punching it repeatedly to defeat him. He has these 3 different phases, and the final one where he's a fire-breathing snake is the hardest. But yeah, I die many times when I play this one. I can never like beat it in a perfect run. I can never beat it without getting hit at least once. This one is frustrating. So one of the best features in Mario Party DS is the puzzle mode, where they took each of the puzzle games between Mario Party 3 through 7, and they brought them back as endless puzzle challenges for single players. I won't go over each of these puzzle games again, since I already went over them in my past reviews, but I will go over the new puzzle game that we unlock for beating story mode. Now, considering how long we can last in these puzzle games, it's a shame that the Mario Party point system is so cheap. They should reward us for, like lasting more than 30 minutes in a minigame. Like, for making it that far, they should at least like reward you with like 300 points or something. But there is no reason why we should be granted 8 measly points for surviving over 30 minutes in a puzzle game, when other 1 to 3 minute minigames reward us 20 points for winning. It is so unfair. So the new puzzle game is called Triangle Twisters, and it's one of the trickiest puzzle games in the series, requiring us to rotate these triangles with the touchscreen or the D-pad and buttons to try matching 4 colors to clear out the other triangles. This is like trying to solve many Rubik's Cubes at once. I honestly blank out when I'm playing this one. Just too many colors, and I don't know where to start. It definitely takes a lot of practice. It can be kind of fun once you finally get the hang of it, but it's not as fun as the other puzzle games in this series. Now on to the 5 board maps. Wiggler's Garden is a backyard garden with a lot of bricks and oversized plants, one of the prettiest levels in the games, and it plays like most traditional board maps where you just race around to collect the star. So Toadette's Music Room is one of the most creative levels in the game, being a room of giant musical instruments like a giant piano that we run across, drums, brass instruments. My biggest complaint with the level is the music itself is a huge ear sore. It is so painful to listen to. I remember it sounded awful when playing it on the DS, but it sounds even worse when you're playing it on the Wii U through a TV speaker. How can a level about music have such terrible music? It just doesn't add up. The rule of this map is neat as well. Instead of chasing stars, we're chasing different colored music notes that are worth a star. And they change in value over time. So starting off, we can get like a star as low as 5 coins. And then each time one is collected, it gradually increases, like 10 coins, 15 coins, 20 coins, and it can go all the way up to costing 50 coins. And we can scare off the music note stars by landing on these happening spaces that trigger these metronomes. So overall, it's a great level, but I wish the music wasn't so awful. DK's stone statue is a jungle where DK was transformed into stone by dry bones, as we need the power of the stars to free him. So we just have to climb up like all these ropes and platforms. It almost feels like a tribute to the original Donkey Kong game. If you look closely at the layout of the level, it's almost like an old Donkey Kong level, as you have to climb up ropes and ramps to reach the very top. So there's like a star point at the very top, and this has a very unique gimmick where it allows you to buy multiple stars at once. The star point never changes, so we just have to reach the top, and we can buy as many stars as we want, as long as we have 20 coins per star. I'm not sure if there's a limit for how many you can buy at once, but I was able to buy like 3 in one turn because I had like 60 coins, so we need to watch out for the happening spaces that can trigger a barrel to crush us. It'll make us lose 10 coins. Or we can be forced to walk up or down these ropes that may give us a shortcut or send us further backwards. Overall, it's a decent level. I also like the jungle visuals of this one. Kamek's Library is the absolute worst map in the game. It's the only one I do not like. The star is hidden in one of these 3 chests. Each chest costs about 10 coins to open, but 2 of them are dummies, where one will refund you with 5 coins, and the other eats you up and gives you nothing. What frustrates me the most about this map is that there are some star chests that will only warp towards the upper side of the map, and the only way to reach that area is through happening spaces that'll warp us there. So it's so frustrating when there are turns where all 3 of them are up at the upper half, and you struggle to try getting there, and by the time you finally reach there, the CPU gets it before you, and then that means you gotta run all the way around and hope to land on another happening space to get back to the regular side of the map where the other stars spawn, and oh, it is so annoying. I otherwise love the visuals of this with all the books and sorcery stuff, but the music is such a drag. It is the most nothing music in this game. There's like just a few like ominous notes. It's like, you call this music? So Bowser's Pinball Machine is the final board map as the players are trapped inside of Bowser's Pinball Machine. Kind of a cool idea, a pinball themed board map, but a lot of missed opportunities. I was expecting there to be like happening spaces that cause like a bunch of balls to be flung around, bowling the characters over. We do have happening spaces that will flip the characters from one side to the other, but nothing where they have to worry about getting chased around by a ball or something. It's otherwise a decent map though. It does have a few annoying gambling gimmicks, but it's not bad overall. Overall, Mario Party DS is a pretty mixed game. It has a terrible story, some bad controls, awful boss minigames, and terrible sound quality and music. But for the DS's limitations, it's got some decent graphics, some very fun touchscreen minigames, and mostly decent board maps. The way we can play board maps in most minigames with just one opponent is a really neat feature that I wish would be brought back into other entries. The puzzle collection mode is such a great addition to the game. It's fun to be able to revisit all these puzzle minigames all in one game. This entry has some of the best replay value out of all the past games. It's fun to go back and try to earn more Mario Party points to try unlocking all the trophies. It's honestly the best handheld entry in the series. Better than Mario Party Advance and even better than the 3DS entries in the series. For the first time since I've started this tier list, I'm going to bump one of the past games down a tier. I'm going to move Mario Party 1 down from the bottom of the A tier into the top of the B tier. Now I'm going to sandwich Mario Party DS between Mario Party 2 and Mario Party 6 on the A tier. So join me next time where I revisit Mario Party 8, the very first entry on Wii, and the very first entry to use motion controls. That's all I have to show for now. Thank you for watching, see you next time, and have a great day. SpongicX's here. I hope my microphone doesn't sound too bad, because unfortunately the stand broke, so until I get a new one in the mail, I'm going to have to hold the microphone in my hand, so hopefully that doesn't cause any disturbance in the sound or anything. But anyway, SpongicX's here, continuing my Mario Party review series. Today I'm going to talk about Mario Party Island Tour, the third handheld entry, and the first entry to be on the Nintendo 3DS. Sadly, the game does not utilize the 3DS's 3D slider very well at all, but then again, barely any 3DS game bothered utilizing it properly. There were only like a few 3DS games where the 3D actually looked good, like Zelda Ocarina of Time, Star Fox 64 3D, Super Mario 3D Land, but barely any games on 3DS bothered using it, and they all look terrible with the 3D depth on. Maybe Switch 2 will someday give us VR support, and then maybe we can finally get a real 3D Mario Party. So this was the second game to be released by ND Cube, and as I said in my last review, ND Cube's first batch of Mario Party games were very divisive for drastically straying away from the classic Mario Party formula. Mario Party Island Tour is not much different in that regard, but it's arguably even more drastic with the changes compared to Mario Party 9. Mario Party Island Tour is lacking in a lot of modes and features compared to past entries. There's even minigames and a board map that are inaccessible unless you have another player with another 3DS to play with. And that is a real shame to exclude features just because you don't have another console or a friend to play with. That's ridiculous. So I won't be able to go over every single minigame or board map in this review because of those restrictions. So we got the usual things like party mode and minigame mode, along with a single player challenge mode called Bowser's Tower, along with a collection mode. The collection mode has the most underwhelming collectibles out of the entire series thus far. We save up our party points from playing minigames and board maps in exchange for memory bubbles that do absolutely nothing but serve as sound test modes. So they let us listen to character voice clips and the music, and I don't know why you'd want to even bother because this game has really bland music. I keep saying this with every entry, but the music keeps getting more bland with each entry, and God, the music here is even more forgettable than the one in Mario Party 9. Remember when Mario Party DS actually let us unlock collectible 3D models of the characters instead? So Bowser's Tower is a real frustrating and brutal single-player challenge that requires us to clear 30 floors of a giant tower. Each floor has one of two minigames that we can choose to play with. There are checkpoints that are created every 5 floors, and if we lose a single minigame, we gotta start all the way back from the previous checkpoint, and it takes forever due to many of these minigames requiring dumb luck. The CPU have brutal difficulty. The only plus side to this mode is that it has some of the best boss minigames in the series thus far. I did not care for the boss minigames in Mario Party DS or Mario Party 9, but they're actually pretty good in this one overall. They're strictly single-player boss fights instead of multiplayer battles that take dumb luck to win. Our ultimate prize for beating the story mode is that we get to unlock Bowser Jr. as a playable character for the first time. The roster in this game is pretty weak overall. It's surprisingly slightly better than Mario Party DS, but only by 2 characters. You still got the regulars that have been there since Mario Party 3, like Mario, Luigi, Peach, Daisy, Wario, Waluigi, and Yoshi. Toad and Boo from Mario Party 5 are still here, but all the other characters have been scrapped, and Bowser Jr. is the only new character in this game. I wish I could recommend skipping Bowser's Tower, because it's mostly forgettable and very frustrating, but it's only worth going through if you want to unlock all the boss minigames, which are worth playing. And it's too bad that you'll likely have to keep starting over with all these unskippable lengthy cutscenes, as the characters have to keep constantly climbing these steps every time they succeed in a room. Yeah, it gets very tiring. It makes you wish you could just skip all this stuff. The mode wouldn't be so bad if you could skip all this stuff, and if it had better checkpoints. The party mode is very different. Each board map has very different ways of progressing and playing, unlike most games where they rely on collecting the most stars or mini stars. So only one of these board maps actually has the mini stars, so it's the only level that actually has items you need to collect in order to win. I wish I could like these board maps, for some of them have really neat designs and layouts, and some of them have really cool ideas, but overall their execution just sucks out all the fun that it should have had. This entry ditches the car gameplay from the previous one, surprisingly. So, Perilous Palace Path is a map I almost thought I was going to like at first, because it starts off kind of seeming like a really fun idea. It's a one-way race to the palace at the end of this map, It has these split paths along the way. There's something so cool about a Mario Party board map where instead of collecting the most stars or coins to win, you just gotta make it to the finish first. As we collect these power-ups that will give us a boost, along with items that can sabotage other players. But there's just so much about the execution that ruins this. So after every player's turn, we play a mini-game for a chance to win lucky dice blocks to boost our dice rolls. If we land on a versus space, we get to compete to take turns in picking one of 3 items, and a lot of these items are just way too overpowered, so depending on the order of who won in which rank, they get to pick the items first, and all the items are overpowered. So yeah, it really feels lame when you're forced to pick an item, then you know the CPU is just going to pick an item where no matter what you do, you're screwed, because they're going to steal your items, or they're going to swap places with you. It's so annoying. I don't like how it basically just gives free handouts to people who are basically losing, and it basically gives them a chance to basically cheat the game. I don't like the way this was handled. There's way too many annoying items and holdups that take away what fun there is to be had with this. There are cases where someone can be dead last through the majority of the game, but then they happen to get the Kamek item, which randomly shuffles everyone's places around. It is so unfair, and it's so easy for anyone to get not only one, but multiple copies of this item, and I just don't like it. I really wish a lot of these items were excluded. I wish it just focused on the ones that gave us like a few extra dice blocks, or a few extra spaces going forward, or maybe an item that sends players a few spaces back or makes them lose a turn. Stuff like that wouldn't be so bad, but the way that these drastically alter the game for the worse is so annoying. And then right when you think you finally won, someone makes it to the end, but then all of a sudden there's a roadblock when a Womp appears and you have to beat him in a dice rolling minigame in order to win. It's terrible. I am just thankful that there isn't a story mode which forces us to win every board map, or this might have gone down as the worst entry in the franchise. Many of these board maps feel so empty without coins or stars or anything to collect for that matter. Bonsai Bill's Mad Mountain is one of my least favorite maps in the game. It's the shortest map in the game, and it can either be cleared the quickest or it can take the longest to beat depending on your luck. The goal is to get to the castle on top of a cliff, as we try not to land on the Bonsai Bill with our dice block, or he'll ram any players in the way back to start. And considering how lengthy it can get all the way to the top, yeah, that's really annoying. So we can try landing on a dice number to hide inside of these caves, which will prevent us from getting blasted by the Bonsai Bill in case he gets summoned. And every 3 turns, a minigame triggers, which grants first, second, and third place winners a number of spaces to move forward, with first place getting to move 5 spaces. It's hard to get excited with these maps when you know that no matter how well you're going to end up doing, the game will just be rigged to have you lose in the end. It's like that. No matter how many times I play these board maps, I'm doing so well at one point, and then I just can't stay happy because I know something's going to screw things over, and I don't recall ever winning any of these board maps. It's so rigged. Starcross Skyway is the closest we get to a map from Mario Party 9, minus the vehicles. It's basically a Mario Party 9 map, but we're running on foot. I do admit that I kind of wish it had that option in Mario Party 9. I did mention how it would have been cool if it had a separate mode where you got to run around on foot, and then there's the mode where you're forced to take turns driving the vehicle. And so it is cool to see that they tried that with this one, but in execution, they ruined it. So each player races to the goal while trying to collect the most mini-stars on the map, and there are situations where the mini-stars can rotate at a certain spot, and so it can make you get either more mini-stars or lose more mini-stars, depending on the circumstances, basically. So we can earn mini-stars in mini-games every 3 turns, or by landing on a versus space to trigger a minigame. But it barely rewards us with any mini-stars. It only rewards first place with 3 measly mini-stars, second place with 2, then third place with just 1, and you really don't get much by winning mini-games in this. It really feels like the mini-games shouldn't have been here, when the real way to win is by collecting the ones on the map, and I don't feel like there's enough on the map scattered around to give people a chance. I wish they actually had spaces where you land on them and you actually get mini stars, but no, you have to keep going to these roulette areas to collect the stars, and it's so annoying. Rocket Road is such a tease in so many ways. It's a race through space to try to reach Rosalina at the end. Again, what a tease. I made a big deal in the last game over why wasn't Rosalina playable in that one. And so instead, she actually makes an appearance in this one, unlike Mario Party 9, where they make so many references in Mario Galaxy, but they didn't have the nerve to have Rosalina show up. So they finally have her show up in this one, and she's treated like a trophy girl. it's a whole race of, oh, you see her in the distance? Try to make it to her. Oh, you wish she was playable? Tough luck, nerds. So, yeah, it's just pathetic. I don't like the way they tease the fans like that. They knew people were begging Nintendo for Rosalina to be playable in the Mario Party series, and luckily it wouldn't be too much longer for the following game she was finally made playable in Mario Party 10. So yeah, the map almost looks like a lot of fun. As we fly around on these rockets, we need to collect these thrusters by winning minigames or landing on spaces. We can equip up to 1 to 4 thrusters at once, and they allow us an extra dice roll. We can store up to use 5 dice blocks in one turn for a big burst of speed. However, the map is way too short, and it can get cleared within 30 spaces just about. I really wish it was a lot longer. Like, I feel like this should have been like a 100 space map, or at least a 50 space map maybe. I feel like 30 is just way too short. The worst part is that when the thrusters are equipped, there's a chance of rolling a 0, which means that you wasted not only your turn, but you wasted all of those thrusters that you collected. And so, yeah, that's a real big middle finger to those who were doing so well. They were winning all these mini-games, landing on all these lucky spaces, and then it just gives you a big middle finger by saying, oh, you used all your items at once. Tough luck. So, yeah, I really hated this map. I really wanted to like it, though. It's a gorgeous-looking map, but the gameplay just ruins it. Shy Guys Shuffled City, I have no idea what happens in this one. This is the one map I told you about where you cannot play it unless you're connected with another player on another 3DS. So yeah, thanks a lot, game. Thanks a lot. It was so great to be able to buy this game years ago and then not be able to fully access the game just because I don't have another like $300 spent on another 3DS or something. Nor do I have someone to actually play it. Because back then when I was in school, I was the only kid who actually cared about playing Nintendo games. Everyone else wanted to play Xbox or PlayStation, and I was like the only guy who bothered playing Nintendo in my school, so yeah, thanks for nothing, Nintendo. So, Kamek's Carpet Ride is another fun-looking idea, but once again, horribly executed. It's kind of cool how we ride around on flying magic carpets, though, but... So we start off with a deck of 3 cards with limited space movements, from things like 1 to 3, or 4 to 6, and stuff like that, and so... each turn, we pick a card to roll a dice based on the card on the numbers in order to move forward, and we need to try to land on these spaces that have keys on them in order to reach the goal. So, a board game where we move around with numbered cards. Where have I seen this before? So this is almost a fun idea, but what ruins it is how short it is, not to mention how in order to open the gates, we have to land directly on the spaces with the keys on them, and since this is a map where we get random cards each turn, there are many chances where we'll just keep getting a number of turns where when we get another card in our deck, it's not the one that we need. It will go over the number needed on the space. So when you exceed the number needed to land on that space, it forces you to bounce off the wall, and then you start moving in reverse based on how many numbers are left on your dice roll. And yeah, it really punishes players who are so close to the finish, those who manage to beat everyone to the finish, and then it really punishes them by not rewarding them with small enough cards. And it takes a lot of dumb luck to win this one, and yeah, I really don't like it. Bowser's Peculiar Peak is once again another neat idea, but with terrible setbacks. The goal is to try rolling the smallest dice rolls for Bowser as he waits at the end of the map, and he claims that the first one to reach him will lose the game, and the winner will be whoever was furthest away from him. Now that's kind of a cool idea, a board map where whoever gets to the end first is the loser, so it really prevents you from wanting to hit height dice rolls. That's actually kind of a fun topsy-turvy way of playing a board game. So after every player has rolled their dice, Bowser forces us to play a mini-game, where the losers will get cursed dice blocks, which will force them to roll more or higher dice numbers, while the winner will get no extra dice blocks, and they just get one measly roll of the dice, so it reduces their chances of getting a higher dice block. So I love the idea of trying not to reach the goal first, and if someone else reaches it, they lose. It's a pretty funny idea, but I think what ruins it, though, is it goes against its word. Bowser originally said that whoever reaches the goal first loses. But no, it doesn't end when someone reaches the goal. Instead, he offers them a challenge where they're forced to basically compete in a dice rolling minigame where they have to roll a dice higher than Bowser, otherwise you'll knock them out of the game and the game ends. I would have rather the game just ended as soon as someone reached the goal instead of lying everyone that, oh, there's still a challenge that can possibly drag the game on longer if they succeed. I had the CPU reach the goal, and then as soon as I saw that minigame pop up, I'm like, are you kidding me? Luckily, the CPU lost anyways and the game ended, but still, the thought that you have like extra chances of a character making it to the goal and they manage to survive and it just drags the game on longer when you're ready for it to end already, that is just really annoying. I don't like it when games give your hopes up like that. So congratulations, Mario Party 4, you no longer have the worst collection of board maps in the series. Mario Party 4 may have had very flat and boring looking board maps, but at least there was some fun to be had with them, racing around to collect the coins and stars, along with acquiring some of the rare items. There were plenty of events to shake things up. The maps in Island Tour are very unique and fun looking, but this was the most miserable time I've had playing these board maps. And I thought the board maps from Mario Party 9 were bad, but they were technically better looking in comparison. I wouldn't say they were fun though, but they were less miserable than whatever was going on in Island Tour. So while I think the board maps in this game are absolutely horrible, there is no reason to want to come back and revisit the party mode. I cannot say the same for the mini-games actually. The mini-games are mostly pretty good and refreshing compared to seeing the same rehashed mini-game ideas from past games. A lot of these are pretty original. So this is the first handheld entry to not require using the D-pad controls for moving our characters, though it is still an option if you prefer that. We can use the 3DS's circle pad, which was used for most minigames in this, and it makes moving our characters around feel a lot more comfortable. We still got the touchscreen control minigames like in Mario Party DS. There are a few minigames that are terrible though, and they're mainly the ones that require using the 3DS's gyro controls. So if people thought motion controls on the Wii, Wii U, or Switch were terrible, oh man, they are nothing compared to how unbearable motion controls were on the 3DS. There was just no good way of calibrating this stuff. It was faulty as hell. It did not match your movements at all. And sometimes it would like start automatically steering in directions you're not even aiming for and there's no way to get out of it. It'll just keep tilting in one direction. And that messed me up in many games that required gyro controls, like Mario and Luigi Dream Team, and the Mario and Sonic Olympic crossover games on 3DS. I also don't think that motion controls work on a handheld console where the screen is part of the controller. Motion controls work better when you can move a controller that doesn't move the screen as well. It can be really hard to see what's going on the screen when you're forced to control the screen as well at the same time. So many of these motion controlled minigames were flat out unplayable and uncooperative in this game, but most of the other minigames were pretty decent. Unfortunately, there are no 2 vs 2, 1 vs 3, or dual minigames in this entry. Yeah, this is probably the first entry in the series to not have 1 vs 3 minigames. Most of the minigames are 4-player, and they don't give us the options to reduce the players to 2 or 3, like in Mario Party 9, so that's kind of a shame that it, once again, forces us to play with nothing but 4 players, just like most past entries. The 4-player minigames were renamed to General Minigames for some reason, and they take up a majority of the minigames in this. There's a huge amount of minigames in this, surprisingly, for a handheld entry. There's like 80 minigames, and that's quite shocking, especially for a handheld entry. Most past entries had something between like 65 to 70 minigames. So starting off with the general minigames, claiming the cube has us running around a cube with Super Mario Galaxy styled controls as we have to ground pound on these panels once they glow white. We can pound up to 4 panels at once if we ground pound on the center of a side when all the panels are white at once. Rope a Slope has the player sliding down a rope as we press the A button to jump over branches. Tragic Carpet Ride has us dodging those dark matter eaters from Mario Galaxy 2 as we try avoiding falling down into the holes they make. Stretch 1 has us going 2 rounds of pulling back on a cart with a slingshot as we hold down on the circle pad, and we try preventing ourselves from going too far off the cliff, but we want to try to make it as far as we can without falling off the cliff in order to get more points. I think this would have been better off if it was just 1 round of this instead of 2. Grid is good. It's a dumb luck game where we have to go 3 rounds of placing tiles on the touchscreen in order to try getting the most points, while hoping that the opponents don't pick the same numbers as we did or they'll get cancelled out. More like Grid is bad if you ask me. Color Me Fast has us going 3 rounds of trying to color in the most fruit drawings with the touchscreen. Fun for those who like to color or do art. Musical Snare has us rolling around on bumper balls to try to collect the most music notes to make our balls bigger. but we have to tilt the 3DS to roll around, so this isn't the worst of the minigames that use gyro controls, but it would have been so much better if we could use the circle pad or even a flick with the touchscreen instead. Buzz-a-Fuzzy is a bad gyro-controlled game where we go 3 rounds of aiming by moving the 3DS and shooting the most fuzzies, with 1 shot by holding down and releasing the circle pad. This would have worked so much better by aiming with the circle pad and then shooting with another button instead. I also wish it played more like an unlimited shooter where we get bonus points for shooting multiple fuzzies in 1 shot, and we go under a time limit. I don't like the way they handled this, where you get only 3 shots across 3 rounds. We get 1 shot across 3 rounds. Yeah, it's not fun. And the motion controls make it even worse. Cannonball has us quickly rotating the circle pad to wind up our cannons to fire our players the furthest. Goomba to Maneuver is a fun challenge where we lead a parade of Goombas with the circle pad while trying to keep the Goombas away from the spiky plants. Whoever has the most Goombas by the end wins. Kebab and Weave is a game of dodging the spiked pillars that come shooting out. Tap Dash is a 3-round race of needing to touch the icon that matches the enemies on the top screen. Tanks a Lot is basically a clone of Mario Party 2's Shell Shocked, except instead of being elimination based, the winner goes to whoever shot the most opponents 3 times. So if a player is hit, they will respawn after a delay. Xylophone Home is a touchscreen rhythm minigame as we touch the xylophones as soon as the music notes bounce off of them. Mild Gunman is a series of quick draw games where we need to press the random button prompts. Spin the Bubble requires us to rotate these capsules to have the creatures inside of them match the rotation shown on the bottom image. Too bad it's a terrible motion control game, because this actually does kind of sound like a fun idea, but the motion controls, they're so unresponsive. They keep moving on their own. It's impossible to get it to stop. So yeah, it would have worked so much better with circle pad or even touchscreen rotation. Rat-a-tat Flat is a race to ground pound on the most mice. Tile Savvy has us racing to solve 3 short and simple puzzles with the touchscreen. Normally I hate slide puzzles, but luckily these are short and easy ones. Hide and Splat has us running around and trying to avoid getting crushed by these block enemies. Slow Glide has us tilting the 3DS up and down to steer our gliders up and down to pop the most balloons. So it's one of the only few easy gyro minigames where it's really impossible to mess up the controls on this one, since you don't have to worry about swerving left or right. It's real easy to tilt up and down. Sub Trouble is a fun challenge as we tilt up and down on the circle pad to steer our submarines through very narrow caves. Luckily, getting hit will not eliminate you, but it will slow you down. Garden of Eden is a dumb luck game of picking a flower to water and hoping it's not a piranha plant. Peepa a Peepa is one of the most unresponsive gyro minigames in this whole game, as we're supposed to shine our flashlights on the Peepas, but the controls are impossible to work with. They keep jerking in random directions that we're not even aiming for. Once again, it should have used circle pad controls. Puzzle Pronto has us needing to solve 3 puzzles on the touchscreen. Truckin' and Cluckin' has oddly nothing to do with trucking, but we do need to chase a lot of chickens and hold on to them the longest in order for them to drop the most eggs that we can collect. So we can also tackle other players to steal their chickens, and gold chickens have eggs that are worth the most points. Color Correction is a turf war as we move around to light up the most panels with our own colors. Get Real has us advancing and reversing through frames on a film in order to find the still frame that matches a certain image. It is cool how we progress by rotating the circle pad either clockwise for forward or counterclockwise for reverse, just like we're actually going through an actual film reel. Top This has us racing across 3 rounds to drag the most toppings onto a cake with the touchscreen. Slip and Slip feels like a spin-off to Pushy Penguins from Mario Party 5, but we're on a more slippery body of ice that tilts around as we try staying on while avoiding the sliding penguins. Pachinko Wizard is another dumb luck elimination game of picking a spot by pressing a matching button, as we hope that Lakitu Spinies don't go down and hit us, and it really drags on. No Traction Action is yet another Figure Zero racetrack. We've seen this done to death in past games, many games that revolve winning a race by driving around this zero-figure racetrack, but at least this one has a different perspective to visually spice it up, along with making it a bit more of a challenge. Blown Hover is a tricky race as we try avoiding these panels that come flying at us by either dodging them left or right or jumping. Slow G looks like your typical vertical platforming race. We've seen these in quite a number of Mario Party games, but what makes this one different is how we have very low gravity, which makes our jumps higher and floatier. Spin and Barret is a slow and boring dumb luck game as we pick a panel to stand on. One player spins a wheel with the touchscreen to try to get the other players eliminated until the last player is standing. Fisty Clouds is basically Lava Tile Isle from Mario Party 2, except we're on floating blocky platforms that move around, so we try punching the other opponents off while trying to stay on the platforms. Starring Artist has us using the touchscreen to draw in these lines in order to match the constellations on the top screen. Pokey Corral is a tricky but fun challenge, as we run around to try avoiding the Pokies, as we try also avoiding being pulled off of the cliff by the shifting sands. Hair Today is a cute and fun challenge of running around trying to catch the most bunnies and returning them into their pens, and we get more points if we catch the golden bunnies. Great Bars of Fire has us avoiding fire bars by jumping or ducking. Deck Hunt has us skateboarding to collect coins, but we will lose 3 coins every time we get hit. Paddle Skedaddle has us stroking down on the touchscreen from the left or right side in order to canoe to the finish. Fuel Me Once has us trying to time the A button at the right time in order to fuel our rocket enough to reach a platform worth the most points. Get Along Goombas has us drawing circles with the touchscreen to make a big lasso. We stroke upwards in order to try wrangling the most Goombas. Cheapers Keepers is 3 rounds of button mashing randomly called button prompts in order to try reeling in the most cheap. I really think this would have worked better as a 1-round minigame instead of needing 3 needless rounds. Drive for Show has us stroking the touchscreen in different directions in order to swing these golf balls into these targets to try to get the most points. Hop Till You Drop is a platform peril clone as we race to the finish by hopping on these platforms and conveyor belts. Helter Shelter is a dumb luck game of grabbing oysters and hoping they have the most pearls. It goes on way longer than it needs to. Meteor Melee is just a more sluggish clone of Coney Island from Mario Party 5, except we're catching stars while dodging meteors. Bumper Thumper is a fun take on bumper balls from the original Mario Party, except we have to bump opponents by flicking the circle pad into different directions for short thrusts to come out of our rocket vehicles as we try breaking the walls to bump our opponents off of the arena. Horror Harriers is a game of running around to avoid bumping into the Peepas. Cheap Diamonds is just a clone of that tiring memory match game from Mario Party 9 called Plunder Ground. So Big Berthas end up eating all these gems, they swim around and we have to pick which one ate the most gems. So this one goes on way too long. It should have just been a 1-round game. At least the scoring system in this one is more fitting compared to the one from Mario Party 9. Slipknot is another decent idea ruined by motion controls, so we're supposed to steer our characters to prevent them from falling off of a literal water slide. It should have used the circle pad or touchscreen controls instead. Trounce and Bounce is an elimination reimagining of that skydiving minigame from Mario Party DS, as we try diving onto these mushrooms to move on to the next round, but we're eliminated if we hit the ground. The CPU are relentless as they'll keep trying to bump into you. Mad Ladders has us moving all around to climb up these ladders, as we need to hop from ladders left to right in order to dodge the spikes attacks. Squish You Are Here has us trying to squeeze between these gaps to try avoiding being crushed by metal pillars. Go With the Flow is a tricky race as we try transferring the most penguins across this cold water by sliding over the ice and trying not to fall into the water. Pool Buoy has us stroking the touchscreen in different directions to roll our characters towards the buoys that Lakitu throws in order to get the most points. Amp My Style has us trying to avoid the Amp's tricky narrow attacks. Magmathon is a platforming race that requires quickly pressing the random buttons as they appear on the platforms. Shrub Hubbub has us using the touchscreen to trim these hedges by drawing the line shown on screen. Quickest Cricket is a pretty fun one that has us holding down on the circle pad and releasing it once it's charged up enough in order to fling our crickets towards the finish line while dodging obstacles and timing things right. Diamond a Dozen has us needing to observe tunnels with gems in them, and we need to jump down the holes that we think has the most treasure. Flip Out has us pressing the A button multiple times in order to hop across these panels to reach the goal, but there are these tricky panels with faces on them that will try flipping us off of the course. Bob-Omb Plum has the players kicking bob-ombs towards the other players' islands to try bombing them out of the game. Gyro for the gold has us tilting the 3DS to roll a ball to the finish. It's not the worst gyro game, I mean it is functional, but once again it could have been so much better with circle pad or touchscreen controls. Point and Shoot is another faulty gyro game where we need to find requested baddies by tilting our 3DS and pressing the A button to take a picture of the characters once we find them. Match Faker is a real fun idea where we have to make up these short note initials or drawings on the touchscreen in order to try helping us memorize the orders of the characters on the touchscreen. So once the timer goes out, the panels are hidden as we try answering where 3 of these characters are hidden, and we have to look at our notes for reference. It's a pretty fun challenge. You gotta act really fast though, because it doesn't give you much time to take notes. Skyd and Seek is a very similar minigame to the last one. It's another fun note-taking game as we try counting how many Paragoombas or Paratroopers are hiding in the clouds. And we gotta pay attention for the ones that end up leaving the clouds. So, I always played this by drawing a big G for Goomba and with a big K next to it for Koopa. And then I'd add a tally under the G or the K, depending on how many Koopas or Goombas fly in. And then I slash out one of those marks when one of them leaves. And so in the end, I just count how many lines are not slashed out, and then I feel like that's the easiest way to play this minigame. But there's so many different approaches that players might try to play this in their own way. But yeah, it's a really fun idea though. I love the idea of a minigame where you gotta take notes to win. It's more fun than all those old games where you gotta write down a password and use it like many levels later or something. Because at least this is one where you're doing it immediately and not later. That, and you don't have to worry, unlike old games on N64 or NES where you had to write it down on a piece of paper, at least on this, you have it right there on your touchscreen, so that's what makes this another fun minigame idea. I unfortunately was not able to play the microphone minigame called Utter Nonsense, where it requires more than one player along with multiple 3DS consoles, but there is a single-player version of this called the Choicest Voice, which I'll get to in a bit. Onto the boss minigames. Goomba Takedown Tower has us needing to avoid the Goombas and spiky nuts, as we pick up apples and chuck them at the Goomba Tower to knock it over, followed by lining up the Goombas to knock them all out by throwing more apples at them. Chain Chomp's Lava Lunge is a short and simple challenge of luring a Goomba to ground pound on these square grids in order to try burning the Chomp into lava. Mr. Blizzard's Snow Slalom has us stroking the touchscreen to roll a snowball over tokens to increase its size to make a bigger impact when it reaches the other side to ram Mr. Blizzard. King Bob-omb's Court of Chaos is a boring game of using the touchscreen to line up a path by sliding panels across the touchscreen in order to line them up and guide bombs on a pathway to a cannon before the bomb explodes on us. Dry Bowser's Bone Bonk requires us to put in these button inputs as fast as we can to counter Bowser's bone throwing attacks. Bowser Sky Shuffle is a dumb game of needing to fire cannons at Bowser with the gyro tilting along with the A button to shoot. When we run out of ammo, we need to switch over to these segments where we gotta run around and hit these winged dice blocks for more cannonballs while dodging Bowser's flame attacks. It's best to shoot Bowser only when he stops moving to laugh at us, but once again, I feel like the gyro controls felt totally pointless. This is not a very fun final boss fight. It's not hard though, it's just more annoying than anything. So while not all of them are great, I mean there's at least 2 of them that are kind of disappointing, but I overall really did enjoy the boss mini games this time around. It's too bad that they're exclusive to that disappointing tower mode, but the King Bob-omb and Final Bowser fight left a lot to be desired, but the rest were pretty fun. Unlike most Mario Party games that usually have just like one puzzle game, this one has 3 brand new puzzle games. 3 House has us rotating a block of 4 items as we tried to line up 3 or more items to clear them out. And over time, we can earn special POW blocks where pressing the R button allows us to clear out multiple items at once. I remembered putting most of my hours into this minigame alone when visiting this game back then. So this one is played with the D-pad as we rotate the panels with the A or B button. Emergency Hexit is another fun puzzle game played entirely with touchscreen controls as we horizontally or diagonally drag these matching hexagon tiles next to each other to try clearing them out to see how far we can go before time runs out. If we find Koopa shells, we can slide them over to the very left or right of the screen for our players to kick them around to knock out multiple hexagons at once. Once again, it's a very fun minigame. Star Turn is arguably the weakest of the 3 puzzle games. It's not bad though, just not as fun. The goal is to rotate these lines made of tiny stars in order to try caging in these bigger stars. Finally, there's the Extras minigames. Sadly, I will not be able to go over Kagoomba or Sinking Feeling, which require the augmented reality function, where back when people first bought their 3DS, we got these little cards that we could aim the 3DS's camera at, and they could trigger these special 3D models or minigames to appear out of our 3DS's camera, giving an illusion of playing video games in the real world. So Kagoomba was a shooting game where Goombas would spawn out on our kitchen table or wherever we were playing. We have to try shooting them down. Sinking Feeling has a giant tower with lava at the bottom growing out of our table, and so we're playing a minigame where we're trying to climb, to control our characters to climb to the top of the tower while trying not to fall into the rising lava below. I remember this one being a very headache-inducing minigame because the tower was constantly like wobbling on its own when you slightly move the camera, and so yeah, it got very nauseating. So the choicest voice, it's a funny idea but incredibly challenging and kind of flawed, as we're forced to use the 3DS microphone to try mimicking the voice clips of the other characters. So I can imagine this being very fun with a group of friends as they're just laughing at how bad their impressions are, and it might even be fun for those who actually are good at doing voice impressions. So I am terrible at impersonating characters. I unfairly was forced to try mimicking Princess Peach and Daisy's voices, and oh, I was awful at that. I got like 2 out of 5 votes from the judges, and so the only one I did a slightly decent job at was mimicking Luigi. I got 4 out of 5 stars for that.
It's Luigi time. It's a Luigi time.
So not only is the 3DS microphone quality terrible, but it made my voice come out too loud and crackling, but the minigame did a terrible job at recording my audio as well. I spoke right on cue, yet it cut off the first few and last seconds, so it made my voice recording incomplete, and I don't know why, but yeah, it really ruins it when it cuts off those few seconds before and after. Oh boy, where do I put this whole game on the tier list? Mario Party Island Tour is overall a very mixed game. It's more bad than good, honestly. It has very lackluster rewards, the worst board maps in the series thus far. It has a frustrating single-player challenge mode, terrible motion-controlled mini-games. There's an entire board map that single players cannot play unless they have friends with more 3DSs to play it. That is stupid. So I can't think of any other Mario Party game where the board maps were locked out, except for maybe Mario Party Advance, but meanwhile, it does have some very fun minigames, though, including the improved boss minigames. It has 2 very fun puzzle minigames. So overall, yeah, this is a very mixed entry. It has more things holding it back, to be honest, but some of the minigames are just too much fun to fully hate this game. I'm just going to put it between Mario Party 7 and Mario Party Advance on the C tier. I think it has better minigames than Mario Party Advance and Mario Party 7, but I'll say that Mario Party 7 is better for having better board maps and less underwhelming unlockables. I can't believe I actually liked Island Tour more than Mario Party 9, but it was really the minigames that made the final decision, especially the 2 puzzle minigames. Those 2 puzzle games alone make me prefer Island Tour over anything that Mario Party 9 has to offer. I still never see myself going back to playing Party Mode or Bowser's Tower Mode. I only see myself going back to play maybe the boss minigames and the puzzle minigames, a few of the general minigames, but otherwise, yeah, this is not the best entry in the series, but I wouldn't call it the absolute worst either. So join me next time where I look at what I'm surprised isn't the lowest selling entry in the series, considering how the Wii U is always joked on for being that console that no one ever bought, and then that always makes me feel uncomfortable because I was one who was like ripped and ready to buy it day one, you know. Everyone jokes about how terrible the Wii U was, and then I'm just sitting there going, I thought the Wii U was a great console. But so next time I'm going to look at Mario Party 10, the first HD entry in the series, the last entry to use Wii remotes, and the only entry to use the Wii U gamepad. It's also the last entry to have a number in the title, so after this there was no Mario Party 11 because Nintendo totally rebooted the series with Super Mario Party on Nintendo Switch. Anyways, that's all I have to show for now. Thank you for watching, see you next time, and have a great day. SpongicX here, continuing my Mario Party review series. Today we're looking at Mario Party Star Rush, the second entry on the 3DS, and the second worst selling entry in the series, right behind Mario Party The Top 100, which I'll be getting to next time. It also has very mixed reviews, mostly ranging from 5 out of 10s to even lower. Like, there are some review scores as low as 2.7, and honestly, I think some of those low scores are kind of undeserving. So, just like every other one of Nintendo Cube's early outings of Mario Party, this one is very different from the first 8 entries of the series. But I'm going to be honest, Mario Party Star Rush is one of the most underrated entries in the series. It's not the best, mind you, it's still a very mixed game, but when it comes to all of the experimental entries in the series, I feel like Star Rush did the experimentation the best. This was honestly the most fun I've had with an entry in the series since Mario Party 5. This one actually got rid of the car and mini stars gameplay, and it brought back the coins and stars, but the board gameplay and modes are completely different, and they're mostly not bad, or at least half of them aren't bad. There's 9 different modes altogether with many hours of content and replayability. So starting off, we'll go with just a simple mode like the Character Museum, which is just a simple mode of being able to look at the 3D models of all of the characters in the game, including the playable characters, NPCs, and bosses, complete with character descriptions, and a few fun little animations to toggle between with the A button. And some of these models can even trigger really cool 3D effects if you have the 3D slider on, like seeing Hammer Bro throwing hammers at us. The character models are overall pretty decent considering the 3DS's limitations, but I can't help but be distracted by the big blocky low poly hands with the drawn on fingers. The roster has all of the playable characters from Mario Party 10 except for Spike, but who cares? Rosalina and DK are still here, and for the first time ever, Diddy Kong finally became playable. That seriously excited me back then because Diddy is my favorite character from the Donkey Kong franchise, and too bad he was only playable in one other Mario Party game after this. So Rosalina, DK, Toadette, and Diddy Kong are all hidden characters, and they require earning milestones across the game modes, which require leveling up to unlock them. So basically you gain experience points for gaining certain milestones, and once you level up to a certain rank, you can get like a new mode or a new character or something. So we can also unlock the characters quicker if we have their amiibo figures and scan them. Toadette is the only character who cannot be unlocked through amiibos, for she never got a physical amiibo figure, so you think they'd at least let you scan a Toad figure or something. Toadette is the easiest character to unlock though, she only requires leveling up to level 4. Diddy Kong is the hardest character to unlock without an amiibo, requiring players to reach level 11. Luckily I had most of these amiibos anyways from the Smash Brothers series, so yeah. I was basically able to unlock them pretty quickly. So before I go over the board maps and the modes, let's look at the minigames first. There's sadly a very small selection of minigames this time around. There aren't any 2 vs 2, 1 vs 3, or dual minigames. There's only 53 minigames in this, making for one of the smallest collections of minigames in the entire series. Many of the 4-player minigames are pretty bad too. They're not ones that I see myself wanting to go back to and play, and that can really hold back on some of the board map modes when these are the main minigames that you'll be playing. There are still a few decent ones in there, but yeah, it's pretty weak overall. This game also has the worst sets of instructions out of any Mario Party entry. I just said the same thing about Mario Party 10, but god, even Mario Party 10 had a bit more instruction here. There's no instruction screen at all in this game. It just loads you right into the game, and it just gives you a vague description of what to do, like try not to drop all your acorns or something. It doesn't bother telling you that you gotta move your character with the joystick, or you gotta pick things up with the A button. It basically pushes you into traffic, and it expects you to figure it out on yourself. It's so stupid. It doesn't let you know if the minigame is going to be touchscreen or button controlled right ahead of time. You just got to figure it out. So luckily there are no more gyroscope minigames, since those were the worst minigames from Island Tour. So onto the minigames. Acorn Utopia is a survival challenge to prevent bumping into Goombas as we try to carry all 5 of our acorns the longest. Whoever loses all 5 of theirs loses. Last one standing wins. Corkscrew Climb is a real flawed and annoying dumb luck game where we auto-run and try jumping over these amps, or we get pushed to the back of the line. Whoever is in front of the line at the end wins. This is incredibly flawed, for the motion is too fast. The camera angle makes it very tricky to see and dodge the amps. I'd rather it have just been a minigame where if we get hit, it slows us down instead of shoves us all the way into the back. It's like a very linear line, and whoever's in first place basically is the winner, and it's so flawed in my opinion. I don't really like this one. I wish it was a physical race that relied on momentum instead of just line placement, like we're getting hit automatically pushes you to the back of the line. It's just really flawed. Piece of Cake is a real annoying one where we have to remember the insides of a cake as we try cutting off a slice that the Shy Guy requests. So we do this for 3 slow and painful rounds, as the Shy Guy has to slowly walk around to compare each character's slice. Oh, it is so annoying, and to have to see it done 3 times makes it even more annoying. It's also really hard to try remembering the layouts of the insides of some of these cakes, so yeah, it's not a very fun one. Lava Labyrinth is a race through a maze as we avoid the giant lava monsters. We want to head for the goals. There's like 4 goals at the end, and each one has different prizes, ranging from big coin prizes to smaller coin prizes to nothing at all. Piranha Plantamonium has a strafing left or right with the circle pad as we try shooting the most piranha plants with the A button, while avoiding the shots from the opponents straight across from us. Greedy Eats is a dumb luck game where we try grabbing the most cookies from one of 2 plates, but if the other players select the same plate that we did, we're forced to share the cookies evenly between those other players. It's just a boring waste of time. I really hate these kind of dumb luck games where you try picking the most, but everyone can pick the same thing. It's so stupid. Jump to Conclusion is an okay one where we have to race to the top of a blocky hill. We press the B button to jump 2 tiles, and it's necessary in order to get over these giant creeper plants, but you can only do that if you're 1 space behind them. So we have to press the A button if we only want to jump 1 tile at a time. Rolls for Moles requires us to press the A button at the right time in order to try bowling over the most moles with these balls, but the timing in this one feels terribly off. Wheelin' and Wigglin' is actually a pretty fun idea, driving these Wiggler vehicles while we try bumping into the other vehicles to break off pieces of the Wiggler mobile. Whoever has the longest Wiggler car in the end is the winner. We can even press the B button for a short burst of speed. Blowboat Battle is the only minigame that requires the 3DS microphone, as we blow into the microphone to blow air into our sail in order to win a mini boat race, while using the joystick to change the wind's trajectory. Fruit or Foe is another tiring dumb luck game of taking turns knocking on a door as we hope that a shy guy will gift us with the most fruits, while hoping that it's not a chain chomp on the other end of the door. This one drags on forever. Bumper Bugs has us flicking the touchscreen in different directions to race our robot scuttlebugs across the water to collect all of the flags before our opponents. Top it off is a quick time game of pressing the right buttons that match the lower half of a power-up shown. Splat a Stamp is a legit fun one. It's probably one of the best mini games in this, where we use the touchscreen to slingshot paintballs onto a giant stamp as we try to have our color dominate the stamp. At the end, the stamp will press down and show what the results look like, based on everyone's color placements, so whoever has the most colors on the stamp wins. It's got fun gameplay and a very fun payoff. Tell me you wouldn't want a t-shirt of this paint splat bob-omb. Parkour War is a different spin on previous platform to the top races from past games. In this one, we gotta go all the way up and all the way down multiple times as we try carrying 3 jewels from the bottom to the top. It might be repetitive, we can only carry 1 jewel at a time, but it is kind of cool to challenge players to not only race to the top, but for once to also race to the bottom. It could have worked if they only did it like where you only had to go up with 2 gems, but it's okay. I do admit though, I don't like how it uses both screens for this minigame. It somehow gets very distracting when you see one character going from the bottom screen to the top screen. It just looks really weird. Fruit Parade is a clone of those 2 notebook minigames from Island Tour, but not as fun. Shy Guys come out with trays of apples, oranges, and lemons, as we need to take notes to count how many of each fruit there is. The minigame will randomly pick one of the 3 fruits and ask us how many there are. For some reason, the drawing on this minigame feels stiffer than before. I tried drawing the fruits themselves. The line restrictions felt very stiff, and it made my drawings look nothing like I was actually drawing. So, Haunted Hallways is a dumb luck race through a maze of hexagon-shaped rooms in hopes of finding the goal. Roller of Revenge has us running and jumping to dodge Spike's attacks. If we get hit 3 times, we lose. Jewel Janitors is a unique one where we use vacuum to try sucking up the most gems onto our side's corner while avoiding the amps. Make sure to shut the vacuum off by releasing the A button every once in a while, or it will overheat and stun us for a bit. Dodge Fuzzy Get Dizzy is a repetitive minigame where we draw circles on the touchscreen to spin our characters to the top. Pop Quiz is just a generic memory match quiz that we've seen done to death in previous games. It shows us 4 baddies, and then it hides them and asks us 3 questions, such as which one was waving or which one had Koopa on it. So, Shooting Stars has us flicking upward on the touchscreen to roll 5 marbles to try landing in rotating holes worth the most points. I wish it gave us endless balls instead. The 5-ball limit really kills all the fun that this minigame could have had. Conk Door de Force is another one of those minigames I cannot stand. So we have to choose whether to move 1 or 0 spaces in hopes of avoiding getting pecked by the conch doors. It's just an awful clone of that awful Womp Boss minigame from Mario Party 9. Minigames like these can just burn. Bridge Saw Puzzle has us using the touchscreen to drag and drop matching grid pieces over a broken bridge in order to try racing across to the finish before the other players. Best 2 out of 3 rounds wins. Blockbusters is a fun idea but with questionable controls as we aim a crosshair with the circle pad and press the A button to try shooting all of our colored blocks while trying to avoid shooting our opponent's blocks. What makes this tricky is that sometimes we are forced to shoot our opponent's blocks because one of our blocks is up above it and there's no way to reach it without shooting down any of the lower blocks. This minigame is held back in my opinion for I feel like it would have worked better as a touchscreen minigame. I would have rather touched the blocks to shoot them instead of slowly scrolling a circle pad around. This would have been better off as a Wii Remote minigame in Mario Party 9 or 10, to be honest. And finally, Goomba Guess has us trying to memorize where all the Goombas are as we try touching the spots to try claiming the most Goombas, while getting penalized for guessing wrong. At least this one is turn-based. Overall, these 26 4-player minigames are honestly the worst bunch of 4-player minigames I've ever seen in the series. Barely any of them are fun or original, mostly nothing but dumb luck games, bad controls, and a lot of waiting around. There's a few decent ones in there, just not enough to call it an overall good package. Now you might be asking, wait a minute, if all of these minigames are so bad, then why do I consider Star Rush a very underrated Mario Party game? Well, I haven't talked about the other minigames or modes that make up for these underwhelming 4-player minigames. On to the 12 boss minigames. Yeah, there's surprisingly a lot of boss fights in this one. While not as fun as the boss minigames from Island Tour, these boss minigames are at least a lot better than the Snorefest minigames from Mario Party 9 and 10. These boss minigames are a big part of the 2 board map modes, which I'll get into later. I just wish they got rid of the stupid last hit bonus points that are in all of these boss minigames. So starting off with Mega Goomba's Bad Dream, which has us needing to run past many Goombas in order to try collecting the most apples that are lying right next to a Mega Goomba that's sleeping. We try rushing them back to the basket at the beginning of the level. We can carry 3 apples at a time, but it's smart to only carry 2 at a time, for carrying 3 makes us very slow, which leaves us very open to getting hit by the Goombas that try attacking us. I question how this is considered a boss minigame, since it's more of a collecting minigame. We don't really do any attacking. There is a lot of dodging though, but we're not attacking anything. We're just collecting 45 apples, and we get rewarded with whoever contributed the most. I do find the ending very cute, where the Mega Goomba wakes up outraged at everyone, but it calms down and forgets all about it as it gets distracted by a butterfly and it waddles after it. I mean, how can you hate a Goomba after that? That is just so adorable. The minigame could have been a little shorter, but it's okay. King Boo's Light Smite is admittedly a very faulty one. We have to grab a light block and carry it across these spinning platforms while dodging Peepas in order to reach the other side and blind King Boo with the blocks, as we hop into a warp pipe back to the start and try again until King Boo is defeated. The problem I have with this minigame is how you can be doing so well. You're staying ahead of everyone, not falling off, and dodging the Peepas, yet the CPU, they're basically evenly matched with each other. They're constantly falling behind, slowly getting points, but then all of a sudden, because they're working so slow, they're still like way at the beginning, and out of nowhere, a golden light block will appear, and they'll take it, and then that gives them 3 points. And then not to mention the stupid point bonus where whoever deals the finishing blow gets like 3 extra points, and it's just very unfair in a minigame where most of the points are evenly matched, because this is a very slow minigame where most everyone works at a very even pace, and usually there might at least be one player who's doing better than the others, whether it's human or CPU, and it just feels so rigged for a CPU to just randomly win when they weren't even doing good. It's just because they managed to find that one that's worth 3 points. Yeah, it's really stupid. It's a very flawed minigame. Admittedly, Mario Party 10's King Boo minigame was much better than this. Before I get started on the boss minigame, Mega Monty Mole's in the Hole, I want to clarify that yes, despite how I do own a 3DS and a copy of Mario Party Star Rush, I am unfortunately recording this off of a 3DS emulator because it was the only way I could get good quality footage to complete this review series. I do not have a modified 3DS, and I cannot record off of my own 3DS. That being said, the Monty Mole and King Bob-omb boss fights have major visual errors when playing this on an emulator. The ground texture is flat out missing on the Monty Mole minigame, where the King Bob-omb minigame has the floor invisible. So I do apologize for this reveal because I do not endorse emulation, nor do I encourage it. I am only doing this so I can finish my review series. It's not my fault a lot of my past devices are outdated. It's not my fault that they can't connect with HDMI input so I can record them with my capture software. Anyways, the Monty Mole minigame is an oversized game of whack-a-mole as we avoid the dummy bomb moles and repeatedly whack the real mole. King Bob-omb's Boom de Tot. I'm sorry, but who comes up with these ridiculous names? They make Kingdom Hearts titles look genius in comparison. This minigame has us grabbing bombs and loading them in cannons in order to fire them at King Bob-omb. Petey's Piranha Shell Smackdown is honestly my favorite one, as we dodge Petey's ground pound attacks while we pick up Koopa shells and throw them at him. Mega Blooper's Bayside Bop is honestly the worst and most flawed boss fight in this entire game, but I'll still take this over most of the past boss fights from previous games. So in this drag of a minigame, a mega blooper composes music as bloopers demonstrate a tune by bouncing a beach ball, and we're supposed to mimic the rhythm by smacking the ball at the right time. This would have worked so much better if it had a proper visual to help us time the rhythm better. The scoring system for this minigame makes no sense, especially with how a player can randomly win for being the last one to correctly input a music note, despite how this is a turn-based minigame. So yeah, it feels, despite how there's so much work and timing that's required for this minigame, it's like, what's the point when the ending is so rigged anyways? It feels like it just randomly hands the award to a random player. Yeah, this is not a very fun minigame. I'll at least say that the Mega Blooper is adorable in this minigame, but it's honestly my most hated boss fight in the entire entry. Mega Dry Bones Femur Fever is a repetitive game of constantly ground pounding to power up a cannon to shoot dry bones, while we try jumping at the right time to jump over his bone throwing attacks. Kamek's Card Trip is basically the same as the card picking Sledgehammer Bro minigame from the previous entry. This one is slightly more tolerable for being a lot quicker. I mean, thank goodness that the CPU don't take forever picking cards in this one. So we stretch a slingshot to fire more powerful attacks depending on how many down arrows are on the card that we picked. We want to avoid the Kamek cards or we lose a point. Now you might notice how there's 5 slots for the slingshot to pull back on, despite how the cards can only go up to 3 slots. Well, that's basically for when playing this minigame in the other board modes, where it's possible to play this minigame with CPU allies. I'll discuss more of that later, but yeah, when you play it with CPU allies, it makes this minigame even trickier, for you'll get punished for picking cards that go over that 5 limit, basically forcing you to try going for the cards that are worth 1 or 2 points to avoid risking going over that limit. For that reason alone, I feel like this minigame is more fun to play when you're just playing in minigame mode. Bowser Jr.'s Pound for Pound is a repetitive challenge of running around as we try ground pounding on the most switches that are worth the most points, while avoiding Jr.'s attacks. Bowser actually has 3 boss minigames in this entry. Each of these boss fights has a second phase, where Bowser unleashes a transforming mech that resembles himself. Bowser's Space Race has each player tilting forward and left and right in order to dodge attacks and race for the Mega Mushroom for a triple point attack. The turning in this minigame feels very tricky and unresponsive at times, and getting hit eliminates us from 1 round, making this a very tricky minigame. Bowser's Shocking Slip-Up has us running around hitting slot blocks as we try landing on the lightning symbols to strike Bowser, while avoiding the banana peels that can trip us. Bowser's Hit or Missile Mania is a tiring and repetitive button masher as we mash the A button non-stop to try launching missiles at Bowser, while needing to press the B button to block Bowser's attacks. So the boss minigames are overall still a very flawed bunch of minigames, but I still had more fun with these compared to the boss fights from past entries. Now so far, these minigames are very mixed, but here's where the game starts to get good: the Coin Chaos minigames. So there's a new mode called Coinathlon, where the players are racing each other on the touchscreen with 3 laps across a big board map, where the only way to move forward 1 space is to collect a coin. And so we see on the top screen where we play a bunch of single-player minigames that involve collecting the most coins. And after collecting a certain number of coins, we can collect a power-up where pressing the X button triggers the power-up, where it'll either give us coin bonuses, coin multipliers, or items to attack our foes and slow them down. Coinathlon is honestly the most fun side feature I've ever seen in a Mario Party game. Yes, it's even better than the Super Duels from Mario Party 5. The minigames are also fun to play on their own outside of Coinathlon. When played outside of that mode, it challenges us to break high scores by collecting the most coins across these minigames. Each of these minigames lasts 180 seconds. We have 3 phases, which escalate the difficulty over time. Luckily, Nintendo knew that this mode was something special, for they brought it back in many of the later entries, with new coin collecting minigames. I swear, Nintendo could release a whole game, just call it Mario Party Coinathlon, just nothing but Coinathlon boards and minigames, and I would gladly buy it. I just love this mode, and I love these minigames. It's just fun and addicting. So onto the minigames in this mode. Tiles and Tribulations is a rotating map 3 or more puzzle game, where clearing 3 or more pieces of the baddie blocks will earn us coins. Rolling Rumble is basically a crazier version of Bumper Balls, but with more CPU enemies, and we get coins for each one that we bump off. Goomba Gold Rush has us firing Goombas and Bob-Ombs with cannons. I kinda wish the rate of fire was a lot faster in this one. Leaf Board Horde is a nice tribute to that tree sliding level from Mario Galaxy 2, as we leaf surf down a tree to collect as many coins. There's even Donkey Kong Country references in this map with the barrel cannons. One Stop Toad Shop is similar to Diner Dash, where we rush to gather the items at the Toad's order. The faster we deliver, the bigger our coin prices will be. Cheap Cheap Reach is how the Castaway minigame should have played from the first Mario Party game. In this minigame, we move our cursors with the circle pad, and we cast our fishing rod by holding and releasing the A button. The longer we hold it, the bigger the hand gets, allowing us to grab more fish at once. But watch out for the urchins. Samurai Smackdown is a fun throwback to old arcade sword slashing games as we side scroll left or right and knock out the most enemies with a toy hammer. You press the A button to hit the high enemies and press the B button for the lower enemies. It eventually becomes a juggling act as enemies come swarming at us from left to right non-stop. Pinball Brawl is a fun combination of pinball and knocking out enemies to make collectible coins appear. Silver Lining has us platforming across clouds to collect coins. Conveyor Meltdown is arguably the weakest coin minigame as we just change a conveyor belt left or right to push mushrooms into their correct slots. Steel Diver has us ascending and descending with a submarine to dodge mines and rocks while collecting coins. House of Boos is a Pac-Man styled maze complete with Boo and Peepa ghosts that are chasing us. This one is very tricky for many of the Boos are blocking the paths we need to take in order to collect the coins. It's a fun idea, but I wish the Boos were more spread out and it's pretty flawed in execution. While that is it for the coin minigames, there are still 3 Bowser-themed minigames that only trigger during Coinathlon mode, where Bowser forces everyone to play a minigame, where the losers will be flung back 3 to 10 spaces, depending on how they performed in the minigame. Bowser's Fence Fury has Bowser trying to punch the players off of the fence as they climb around to try dodging him. Bowser's Power Bomb has Bowser dropping bob-bombs from above in order to try defeating us. Bowser's Fire Hazard has Bowser chasing us with a flamethrower across these collapsing tiles. Now there are a few of these coin minigames that could have been better, but overall Coinathlon is honestly the most fun side feature I've ever played out of any Mario Party game. Now onto the main feature of this game called Toad Scramble, which is the most unique board gameplay out of the entire franchise, where instead of running across looping board maps, this is a more strategic tile-based board similar to tactic RPGs, where we roll the dice and move around in any direction as we head for our desired designations. We're back to collecting coins and stars instead of those dreadful mini stars. For every 10 coins that we collect, we can exchange them for stars at the end of the game, making coin collecting the main priority. We can also land on item spaces to get extra dice blocks or sabotage items for the other players. There are 15 board maps altogether. Normally I'd go over each and every board map, but I'm not going to do that for this entry, for there's really nothing very special or unique about these board maps. They overall look and feel very similar, just different tile layouts or shapes, but don't let their bland designs fool you though. The gameplay they contain is still a lot of fun. The most questionable thing about this mode though is how when we start off, the only playable characters are toads, each represented by a color, red, blue, green, and yellow. So I hope you love listening to the ear-grating sounds of 4 toads screaming and shouting all at once. Personally, I think Toad is one of the most annoying Mario characters ever, so yeah, this mode does get on my nerves a little bit hearing his voice constantly being multiplied, but the other players can only be playable if we find and reach them on the board map. So this game introduced the buddy system, which was a fun feature brought back in Super Mario Party, and it was ruined in Super Mario Party Jamboree, unfortunately. So up to 2 or 4 buddies will randomly appear on different sides of the map, as the players are pressured to try reaching them before the other players in hopes of befriending them and letting them give us dice boosts and assistance and boss fight minigames. Now compare that to Super Mario Party Jamboree, where the characters will actually flee in about 5 turns. They're here to stay, so it gives you all the time you need to try having at least one player claim them. Once a buddy is claimed, we have the option to actually swap our Toad out with that character. I rarely ever see myself doing that, because as much as I love the other characters and would rather be playing as them over Toad, the other characters have very questionable stats and dice blocks. Now regular Toads can land a roll of 1 to 6 on their dice, but characters like Donkey Kong have a 50-50 chance of rolling either a 0 or a 10. Now I don't care if Donkey Kong does have half of a chance at rolling 10 spaces, it's not worth it if you can get half a chance of landing a 0 as well. Especially since there are many spaces in these games that can require where you have to land 2 to 3 spaces to land on, or even 1 space to land on. So how are you supposed to get that if you're constantly rolling nothing but 10s? Some characters have other exclusive perks which can lead to finding hidden coins, like Mario being able to possibly find hidden Goombas in the grass, or Rosalina being able to smash through rocks. I don't know how or why she's the character who has that ability. You think that would be more suitable for Wario? He's a guy who's known for actually punching down rocks with his elbows, for crying out loud. So we can be lucky enough to land up to 3 buddies in one game, but the opponents can steal our buddies by landing on the same space as us, which triggers a duel. And no, it's not like the duel mini-games from past games. It's usually a quick dumb luck game, like picking a card that has the highest value and stuff like that. So, unfortunately, if the CPU wins that duel, they steal our partner from us. And yeah, I don't like that. I don't like how we can easily lose our buddies. It feels like a total betrayal to see our buddies just leaving us and working for the enemy. Overall, I really do like the buddy system though, but it can really break the game for many players. When the buddies happen to randomly spawn near one player in particular, it's possible for a player to roll a big enough dice number to where they can collect like 2 or more characters in one dice roll. That is insane. So if one player has 1 or more buddies while the other players have none, chances are that the players without the buddies will not win this game. It will keep guaranteeing the players with buddies to have higher dice rolls and bonus points in boss minigames, not giving anyone else a fair chance to compete. It is incredibly broken, but I can't help but laugh and have fun with how unbalanced it is. It still beats losing everything to freaking Chance Time or Bowser Spaces. Over time, balloons with coins will appear, and if a player lands on them or runs past them, they can pop it for coins, and everyone will be forced to play one of 4 randomly selected minigames. And the balloon popper gets to pick which of those 4 selected minigames will be played. The winner of the minigame will get 10 coins, while the lower places get smaller coin prizes. There's also the shop tent spaces where landing on them allows players to exchange coins for items, including items that can double or triple the stars that we collect. At the beginning of each round, a boss will appear, where the first player to reach the boss gets a coin bonus and a head start to fight the boss, while the other players need to mash the A button to rush over to the boss and join in on the minigame before the player gets all the points from that minigame. It really adds to the pressure and strategic planning in this game. Sometimes you wonder if you'll be able to spend a few dice rolls to wander off and collect some coins in the distance or try to get the ally over there. Sometimes you wonder if you'll be able to do all of that before heading to the boss fight, and then meanwhile there might be chances where while you're doing that, the CPU managed to reach the boss fight before you, and so it forces you to have to rush over there, and you might be behind because you wandered too far off. So it can be both rewarding or punishing to wander off. And yeah, I really love how there is a lot of strategy to this game. It really does require you to make some tough choices. So each board map usually has a limit of bosses ranging between 3 at the lowest, but then many of the later levels have a huge amount of bosses that we need to defeat. So whoever beats the boss with the most points gets a free star, and then once all the bosses are defeated and all of the stars are rescued, we get the award ceremony where a few random bonus coins are passed out and everyone's coins are converted into stars. We get a star for every 10 coins that we exchange, and whoever has the most stars wins. Now, after feeling like the classic Mario Party board gameplay was getting a little repetitive in games like Mario Party 7, where it just felt like they weren't doing much anything new, they're just copying what other games have already done, and then after not caring for the drastic rehaul they did in Mario Party 9, I can't tell you how much this mode actually surprised me. Sure, starting off as Toad can be annoying if you're a guy like me who thinks Toad is the most annoying character ever, but it kinda works. We start off as a weak character, only to feel honored when we manage to find a buddy who will make our side stronger. Running around the board map at the same time is such a fun novelty. It's a shame that other Mario Parties can't do that. Admittedly, some of the boss minigames can make this mode a bit tiring and repetitive, and it makes it go on a little too long, but it's otherwise a very fun and refreshing way to play Mario Party. I would have loved it if they actually had a version of this where we didn't even need mini-games to play. If it was just running around the board map collecting coins and allies, I feel like that still would have been a lot of fun. I'll dare say I actually like this over the traditional Mario Party board map gameplay. It's like if only the mini-games were a lot better, I feel like this would have been one of the best Mario Party games ever made. It's a shame that people clearly missed out on this, judging by the game's low sales numbers. I mean, most Mario Party games managed to make over $2 million in sales total, yet Star Rush only made $870,000. Mario Party Advance, Star Rush, and the Top 100 were the only entries in the series to not reach $1 million in sales, making them the worst-selling entries in the series. Another mode is called Balloon Bash, where it's very similar to Toad Scramble, but not as fun in my opinion. It only has 3 board maps instead of 15. On top of that, the boards are too small in this mode. It's not as big or open as the Toad Scramble board maps. So instead of racing around to beat the most bosses to get stars, this one plays more similarly to the classic Mario Party games, as we race around for star balloons to purchase stars with coins. There are more coin balloons with minigames in this mode compared to Toad Scramble, so minigames are more obnoxious in this mode. It's almost impossible to go a single turn without minigames popping up. And considering how everyone rolls at the same time in this game compared to past Mario Party games where you take turns rolling the dice, that means that minigames will likely spawn more constantly than the traditional Mario Party games. And considering how this game has less minigames than before and arguably the worst collection of minigames ever made, yeah, it's not as fun as Toad Scramble. Every once in a while, a boss minigame will pop out of a balloon. However, when a boss minigame is triggered, it's treated like a 2 versus 2 minigame, where first place is paired with fourth place, and the second and third place players are on a team. This mode isn't bad per se, but it's not as fun with the over-reliance on minigames, along with not including the buddy system. It's also not as fun, because I loved how at the award ceremony in Toad Scramble, how for every 10 coins we collected, we got a star. So you don't get that. Instead, you just get the traditional bonus stars. They'll just hand out random stars over like dumb stuff, like whoever used the least amount of items, or it's always randomly generated, it always feels rigged. So there's really no reason to choose this mode over Toad Scramble unless you're that desperate to play as another character that isn't Toad. Maybe if the regular minigames were actually good, this mode wouldn't have been so bad. It could have used more board map variety too. Yeah, it's not as fun as Toad Scramble. The remaining modes, unfortunately, aren't as exciting as the first half of the modes I already talked about. Rhythm Recital almost sounds like a fun idea. It's a series of rhythm minigames themed after Mario tracks from Mario games, mostly containing the overworld themes from the original Mario games, but it also has like overworld themes from games like Super Mario 3D World, the slight theme from Mario 64. There's a bit of variety of music to this. So we picked one of 4 unsuitable instruments to play along with these songs, and we touched the instrument on the touchscreen to try playing it in sync with the music notes that appear on the top screen, instead of just letting us press the A button or something. I don't know. I feel like the A button would have been more suitable. The timing in this rhythm game is incredibly off, and the music sounds terribly off-key. It's Wii music levels of bad. The note prompts don't match the music at all. That's such a shame, because a rhythm game themed after Mario music sounds like a really fun idea, but they did nothing to remix the music to fit the gameplay better. The gameplay is very out of sync, and the music itself, it's just not fun to listen to. Mario Shuffle is a real boring board map of 1 versus 1, where the players need to roll the dice for 3 character game pieces in order to get all 3 of their characters to the opposite end of the board. They can only roll 2 dice per turns, and move only 2 characters at a time. There's no coins or stars to collect, no minigames or actual character animations. It's somehow more boring than the Amiibo Party from Mario Party 10. Card Party from Mario Party 5 was more entertaining than this. Boo's Block Party is a puzzle game of flipping numbered blocks over to rack up points in order to build up a gauge, and once it's full, we can press the X button to clear out these cardboard boos that build up on the touchscreen, and over time the cardboard boos will surface to the top screen, and we need to clear them out by clearing out the nearby blocks. It's not bad, but it's not as fun or exciting as some of the previous puzzle games in the Mario Party series. It's at least better than the one from Mario Party 7 or the Triangle Twisters from Mario Party DS, but even Mario Party 9 and 10 had better puzzle games than this. At least the Coin-Athlon's puzzle minigame was kind of fun. And finally, there's the worst mode in this game, Challenge Tower. It's a series of missions where we have to try climbing up a giant tower to reach a certain height without touching the hidden amps. I'm just not a fan of this one. It's basically a 3D version of Minesweeper, it feels like. It's ridiculous how there's a mode that wants us to reach a 70th floor, followed by an endless mode, and if we lose, it bribes us to try continuing by scanning an amiibo. God, that is just pathetic. This mode is not worth wasting any time on. So overall, Mario Party Star Rush is a very mixed game overall, but I don't feel like it deserves all the low review scores it got. It's not even close to being the worst entry in the series. While this arguably has the weakest collection of minigames, in both number and quality, I cannot hate the game that introduced the Coin-Athlon. This mode is just too much fun along with those minigames in Coin-Athlon mode. Toad Scramble is a very fun mode despite how unbalanced it can be. It should have toned down the overuse of boss minigames, and it would have been fun if they had the option to just play this without the minigames. It would have been even better if it actually had minigames that were actually worth playing, but if you can look past that, it's still a very fun mode. For a handheld entry, the roster was very enjoyable. It even brought back Donkey Kong and Rosalina, and we finally got Diddy Kong as a playable character, even if his inclusion was sadly short-lived with the series going forward. I will admit that compared to the previous 3DS entry, Mario Party Island Tour, that one had overall better minigames, but it was heavily lacking in fun when it came to the board maps and other side features. Despite Star Rush's overall lackluster minigames, it's amazing to play a Mario Party game where the board gameplay of Toad Scramble is so much fun that it doesn't even make you want to play the minigames. How many other Mario Party games can you say have that description, where the board maps are so much fun on their own, you don't even notice that the minigames are terrible? Still, its lack of minigames and lack of quality in the other side features really holds it back from being considered one of the greatest entries in the series. This has been one of the trickiest games for me to rank on the tier list, but out of all of the mixed entries in the series, this one has to be the one I had the most fun with. It was the most refreshing entry in the series, not relying too much on recycling board maps or minigame ideas that have been done to death across so many games. It focuses more on new ways to play the game and spice it up, while still showing some respect to the original series by ditching the mini-stars and bringing back the coins and stars that fans loved. It has too many flaws to be considered an S tier or even an A tier game, so I'm just going to put it on the top of the B tier list where most of the middle road entries are. What makes this one stand out over the other B tier entries on this list is that it offers players many ways to unlock all the rewards in this game instead of forcing us to 100% complete story modes with each character multiple times. Just leveling up by gaining milestones from playing the other board modes is fair enough. It's ironic that I said this game managed to prove that a Mario Party game can be good if they cut back on the minigames, because the very next Mario Party game did quite the opposite, where it mostly focused on the minigames. And it ended up being considered by many to be the absolute worst entry in the series, being both the worst selling entry and worst reviewed entry. So join me next time where we look at a celebration gone horribly wrong with Mario Party, the top 100. That's all I have to show for now. Thank you for watching, see you next time, and have a great day. SpongicX here with more of my Mario Party review series. Today I'm looking at Mario Party, the top 100, released in 2017, 19 years after the original Mario Party released in Japan. The top 100 was the third and last entry on the 3DS, and it is the worst reviewed and worst selling entry in the entire series. This game was announced as a big celebration of the Mario Party series, with the most number of minigames at the time out of any entry, all being so-called fan favorite picks across the first 10 entries of the series. Sadly, this game excludes minigames from the handheld entries. It would have been cool to see some minigames from Mario Party DS remade for the 3DS. Now, most entries usually have a range between 70 or 80 minigames on average, so with the top 100 having the most minigames, that sounds like a really big deal, but it kind of ruins the record when all the minigames are just remade or rehashed ideas. Mario Party the top 100 is a harsh reality that the minigames alone are not what make the Mario Party games great. It's also the board maps, the coins, the stars, the modes, the features, and the time spent with family and friends that really make these games stand out, for better or worse. Despite having the most minigames in the series at the time, the rest of the game is very empty. There's barely any modes or features. It has the smallest roster we've seen since Mario Party 4, consisting of the original roster of 8 characters from Mario Party 3, except Donkey Kong was once again taken off the roster and replaced with Rosalina. I mean, come on, we just got him back in Mario Party 10 and they kicked him out already? It was kind of cool to be able to play some of these mini-games from previous entries when the characters weren't there before, like playing the Mario Party 1 and 2 mini-games as Waluigi, Daisy, or Rosalina, but it's just not enough to make up for the rest of the game's shortcomings. The main feature of the game is called the Top 100, which is just a minigame select mode similar to the free play modes from previous entries. And then there's a new version of the pesky minigame island single-player challenge from the first Mario Party game, except it's more ridiculous than before. I think what made the original board map so cool was how it felt like a 3D version of the world map of Super Mario World, but with little things in the background that remind us of the minigames we played throughout the game. And so they tried duplicating that here, but it's just done in like a really side-scrolling looking fashion, very similar to the world layout in Super Mario 3D Land, and it's honestly not as fun or exciting as the board map from the first Mario Party game. And so this one is obviously more ridiculous than the original Mario Party's minigame island, since Mario Party had a very small amount of minigames, only 50. So now they expect us to 100% 100 minigames, and they still have the stupid life system, so if we get a game over, we gotta start over from a certain checkpoint. And yeah, a lot of these minigames are very dumb luck minigames, so it's very unfair to keep taking lives away from you until you get it right. It's not my fault these minigames require dumb luck to win, Nintendo. It's like the dumbest system I've ever seen when it comes to a single-player mode. The Mario Party single-player modes, these games are built for multiplayer. It makes no sense to try building single-player challenges out of something like that. And then, not to mention, to make matters worse, there's also a ranking system. So it actually will let us pass if we at least get second or third place in some of the minigames. However, if we want to 100% it, get all the mini stars, we have to get first place in all of them. It's a total waste of time. Don't bother wasting your time on this mode. So there's only one board map in this game, and it's very similar to the Balloon Bash mode from Star Rush, but it's even worse. The board map is very small, there's no coins scattered across the board map at all. The only way to get coins is through the minigame balloons, and the way the minigames are selected is really dumb. We either choose a preset minigame pack, or we pick 5 minigames ourselves that we want to play at the beginning of each game. And every time we have to play a minigame on the board map, each player has to pick one of the 5 minigames they chose from their packs. As the roulette spins, and it will randomly select one of the player's minigame picks. Now, there's nothing wrong with the idea of letting players choose which minigames they want to play across the board map. I still think Nintendo Cube should make a future entry where we have a checklist which allows us to disable or enable which minigames will possibly show up on the board map. I think that would be a really good thing to do. It would be a dream come true to be able to shut off all the dumb luck minigames we hate and focus only on the ones that we actually enjoy playing. The top 100 really fumbled this minigame selection requirement. Why was this not an option? Why couldn't the minigames be selected like before, just randomly? I think they intended this to be a way for human players to express themselves by showing other players what their favorite minigames are, but there could have been easier and better ways to do this, like letting each player create their own profile, where they can then list their favorite minigames from there. And then they can be shared through meeting other players through Street Pass, where you go like, oh, okay, this guy likes this. But yeah, it's pretty much useless because the 3DS connectivity is dead now. So this is honestly the worst board mode I've ever seen in a Mario Party entry. I mean, what other modes of Mario Party games only have one board map? That is ridiculous. And this is coming from a guy who actually likes Star Rush. I mean, the board map gameplay is basically very similar to the one in Star Rush, but it ruins the point and fun of it. I mostly preferred Toad Scramble over Balloon Bash, but at least Balloon Bash had 3 levels to choose from, and better board layouts, along with more randomly selected minigames instead of whatever was going on in the top 100. There's also the fun Decathlon mode from Mario Party 5, but it now has no visual theming to make this mode stand out from the ones that we've seen previously, so it comes off as the most forgettable Decathlon mode in the entire series. There's even a collection mode dedicated to showing box art and artwork from past entries, but it's incredibly vague and underwhelming. You know, I remember how the Sonic Genesis collection for GameCube and PS2, they had much better showcasings of Sonic's past games, complete with actual screenshots and video clips, better selections of artwork. It really felt like a celebration to Sonic's past. So for a game all about celebrating Mario Party's past history, this game doesn't seem too excited about sharing its history with its fans. It just feels like a huge letdown to fans of the past games, while doing absolutely nothing to get new fans excited for the series going forward. I think one of the biggest flaws of this game is that it was made for a handheld. It makes no sense to have an anniversary game for a console series with remade minigames to be on a console that's weaker than the consoles that ran Mario Parties 4 through 10. This idea should have been made for the Wii U instead. The Wii U would have been able to handle these minigames a lot better, both visually and control-wise. The Wii U would have had enough power to handle all 100 of these minigames and offer even more side features. It was all wasted on the 3DS's limitations. Now onto the minigames themselves. Since I've already gone over all of these minigames in the past reviews I've done for this series, I'm not going to re-describe them fully. Instead, I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to say whether I think the remakes of these minigames were remade better or worse than their original versions, while pointing out a few differences. I'm going to judge whether they deserve to be considered one of the series' top 100 minigames. Personally, I think it's a bit of a stretch because while there are a lot of minigames across the series and there are plenty of good ones, I'm not sure if I'd really call a lot of them good enough to be considered top 100 material. and many of the ones in this collection are very questionable choices. Some of them are the most forgettable or frustrating minigames ever. It's like, why did you pick this over much better choices? And I know that was a major criticism that this game got. A lot of players did not end up agreeing with the minigame choices on this. So I'll tally up the numbers and say how many of these minigames were indeed top 100 material. But I will not be ranking these minigames. That would just take way too long, and personally, I don't even know what I would consider like a personal top 100. I don't think I would really be able to think that out very well. So it's worth mentioning that these minigames were reworked to have the same scoring systems introduced in Mario Party 9, where players can now get in second, third, or fourth place, instead of only first place getting rewards. Starting off with the 4-player minigames, which this game mostly consists of, starting off with the few that were in Mario Party, the original. Now, I've said many times in the past that I am not a fan of Shy Guy Says. I get sick every time they bring it back. I will at least say that overall, it's visually more impressive on the 3DS, with more bright and vibrant colors. The ropes actually seem to be properly rendered in 3D this time, instead of being flat PNGs of ropes that are misaligned horribly next to each other. I do think the N64 version of the Shy Guy had a better outfit, though. The 3D model for the Shy Guy looks a lot better on the 3DS, but he feels so naked without that long captain's coat that he originally wore. They also changed the buttons for some reason, so instead of the A and B buttons, we now press the L and R buttons, which honestly feels more appropriate since we're raising left and right flags, so it makes sense to press a left or a right button. It would have been impossible to do that on the original N64 controller, since the L button was much harder to reach, since the joystick was much further away from the top left side of the controller. The remade music isn't too bad either. Now, despite the improved visuals and controls, I still don't like how much of a fake out this minigame is, and I do not consider it top 100 material. Bombs Away is visually more impressive than the Mario Party original, with more rippling water, a more detailed pirate ship and island. I think they made it a bit slower and easier this time around. Barely anything happened during my playthrough of this minigame. Only one person fell off, but everyone else felt like they were just glued to the arena. I think it would have been cooler to remake the Mario Party 2 version of this minigame instead, since it was a more insane version of this minigame, with the bullet bills and the giant torpedo at the end. The remade music isn't as good as the original tune. Otherwise, they did a fine job at remaking this minigame, and it is very iconic, so I do consider it worthy enough to be in the top 100. Facelift was one of my favorite minigames from the first two Mario Parties, so this will obviously be a recommendation for the top 100. This minigame was drastically changed on the 3DS. I do love Bowser's improved 3D model, but the minigame is now played with the touchscreen instead of the joystick and A button. Now, I don't mind using the touchscreen controls at all, but I hate how we're only controlling a silhouette of Bowser's face instead of just simply showing Bowser's full face on the touchscreen. It kind of ruins the charm of seeing ourselves pulling on Bowser's face when we can't even see it anymore. This is a more advanced version of the game, as it wants us to pull off trickier faces than before, and the CPU seemed to be a lot tougher and smarter at this one, even on normal difficulty, which is the easiest difficulty. It's otherwise an okay remake, but I think the original entry did this one a lot better. I wish they just merged the first and second games versions of this minigame, so we could be messing with not only Bowser's face, but randomly selected playable characters, including the new characters who weren't even in Mario Party 2, like Waluigi, Daisy, and Rosalina. Otherwise, yeah, this is a decent one. Wow, that's it for the 4-player minigames from the first Mario Party? Just 3? No Box Mountain Mayhem, no Crazy Cutters, Hammer Drop, Platform Peril, Hot Rope Jump, Treasure Divers, or Running of the Bulb? What gives? The Mario Party 2 version of Slot Card Derby is in this game, but it's heavily limited, for it only includes one of the 3-track variants instead of all 3 of them. It's arguably a lot easier this time though, since the camera now stays focused on our player, instead of panning in and out on all of the racers, which makes it harder to concentrate on our character alone. It's easier to speed up and slow down in this version, making it less likely for us to spin out of control like in the original. It makes it easier to see our characters smoking out so we can automatically slow down before they spin out of control. There's also a strange gimmick where if a player goes fast enough to catch up with a racer who fell behind, they can ram that racer out of the race. Now that's honestly a bit shocking. The 3D models and the characters' oversized heads look so much better in this remake. I overall do prefer playing this version over the versions from Mario Party 1 and 2, but the music is a lot worse than the track used on the N64 version. I still don't like this minigame very much though, but I do appreciate how they made it a little easier. I just don't consider it top 100 material. Shell Shocked is overall a huge improvement in the top 100 with faster controls and shooting. The Koopa tanks look a lot better and shinier than ever. I preferred the coloring of the checker patterned arena in Mario Party 2 a lot better. It had more contrasting colors that stood out better. There is sadly only one stage variant of this instead of all three from the original. Now I do enjoy this minigame, but unfortunately I think there are much better tank minigames in the series like Mario Mechs from Mario Party 5. How is that not in this game? What the heck? That's one of the greatest 1 vs 3 minigames out there. I'll even say it's flat out the greatest 1 vs 3 minigame. How is that not in this game? So, it's a decent game, but there's many others like it out there that are honestly better. So, yeah, I don't think it's top 100 material. Mecha Marathon is not a minigame I think highly of. I do like how the Mecha Fly Guys actually look like toy robots in this game, instead of just lazily using a 3D model of a fly guy with a wind-up on its back. I do prefer the Mario Party 2 version though, for each player had their own unique colored fly guy to match their color schemes, instead of the lazy red, blue, green, and yellow color schemes used in every Mario Party game since Mario Party 5. I really miss when each character had their own personal, unique colors that they got to use throughout minigames. I also liked how Mario Party 2 had more detailed and realistic looking colors with its environments. Instead of this bright orange dirt and bright green grass, it's honestly an eyesore to look at. I'm actually surprised they didn't rework this to use touchscreen controls. It would have made so much more sense to just draw circles to wind up the fly guy. I'm still not a fan of this one overall, and I don't think it belongs in the top 100. Dizzy Dancing was an okay minigame from Mario Party 2, but it was changed up quite a lot in this remake, and it was made a lot easier. So in the original version, the controls were randomized. Anything could have happened. Like moving up could have forced us to move left, while moving left could have forced us to move down. It really mixed up the controls every time, making for a fun and unpredictable challenge as we mess around with the controls until we get it right and try reaching for the music note in the center. On the 3DS, the controls are no longer mixed up. They're just reversed, so up is down and left is right, vice versa. And it's now a collect-a-thon. Instead of collecting just one note, we gotta collect many, as many keep spawning one after the other after one is collected. I still like both versions just fine though. It's hard to say like which ones are better than the other. They both work, but I still wouldn't consider them the greatest minigames ever. Mario Party 2's Hexagon Heat was an okay reimagining of Mushroom Mix-Up from the first game. I always preferred the colorful mushrooms from Mushroom Mix-Up compared to the hexagons. Admittedly, the 3DS did a great job at adding visual flair to this minigame. It was so murky and dark in the original Mario Party 2. This time they made it much more brighter and more colorful. They even added shapes to the platforms, supposedly to make it easier and more accessible for colorblind people, so now they can properly play this minigame. The controls are less slower and less clunkier in this game, so it overall makes it a much better remake compared to Mario Party 2's. Although I do prefer Mushroom Mix-Up, this is basically the same minigame, and I'll consider it worthy of top 100 material. Roll call for Mario Party 2 has been reduced to only having us count the Bob-ombs, so it doesn't have the Toad or Boo variants, unfortunately. It has the exact same gameplay of counting and subtracting Bob-ombs. I do prefer the background and colors of the N64 version, but I do appreciate how the Bob-ombs are fully rendered in 3D this time. They somehow took the most annoying music track in Mario Party 2 and made it even worse. It's a decent minigame, but I wouldn't really call it top 100 material. So they chose the Mario Party 2 version of Bumper Balls, but they only chose the lava variant, so it does not include the island or snow variant, which is unfortunate. It still plays fine, but I honestly prefer the visuals of the N64 version. The lava effects looked a lot better, and I like the brick tower design versus the checker patterned arena in the 3DS remake. It's odd, I was just saying how Hexagon Heat looked worse with the lava on the 3DS, yet the lava looked better for Bumper Balls on the 3DS. It's so weird. Despite how I prefer the N64 versions of this minigame, I do consider this worthy of the top 100. Honeycomb Haylock. One of the worst minigames in the series history. What is this even doing in the top 100? While the colors are too bright in the remake, it admittedly is prettier to look at. The fruits, the honeycombs, and the tree are actually rendered in 3D this time, though I think the bees are still flat sprites. There's actual grass planted beneath the tree this time, so it doesn't look like a dead dirt area, but this minigame is just such a drag, it's not worthy. Bowser's Big Blast is another minigame I despise. Man, for being one of the best entries in the series, Mario Party 2 sure has a lot of terrible dumb luck minigames. Well, the 3DS version of this is definitely more colorful, the explosion looks more impactful, and the plugs are actually 3D rendered this time. Considering how I think this is one of the worst minigames ever made, yeah, you can guess pretty well that this is not going to be on the worthy list. On to the 4-player minigames from Mario Party 3. Snowball Summit was my favorite minigame from Mario Party 3, so you know it's going to be in the top 100. I honestly prefer this minigame in Mario Party 3 though. I like the colors better, especially with the auroras in the background. The 3DS remake has a stronger texture on the snow, but I for some reason liked its appearance better on the N64. I like how the mountain looked less flat-topped on the N64. The music was much more pleasant in the original. Otherwise, yeah, it's a worthy one. Bounce and Drown's overall looks and plays much worse on the 3DS. The color palette looks so much worse, focusing on pink tiles instead of the purple and green tiles that contrasted pretty well with each other. It's worth noting that Mario Party 3 had a very unique art style in the series where the world looked like a giant pop-up book. So all these remade minigames on the 3DS scrapped the cutout art style from Mario Party 3. The N64 version had a real knockback when spitting into other players, but the 3DS knockback is very weak, and sometimes it barely pushes anyone back. This one just isn't worthy. Rockin' Raceway admittedly looks a lot better on the 3DS. The more detailed art style actually fits this minigame pretty well. For some dumb reason, it scrapped the music from the original minigame and instead used the awful remade track used in Mecha Marathon from Mario Party 2. Yeah, for some reason, many of the minigames, they swap the music out with tracks from different games. I don't understand why. Sadly, I don't consider this minigame good enough for the top 100. For some reason, Toadstool Titan was renamed to Mush Pit. I like the arena in darker colors a lot better from the original, but overall, I find the gameplay of the 3DS remake better. It's cool how they replaced the mushroom with the Mega Mushroom from New Super Mario Bros. The player who obtains the Mega Mushroom has less of a control delay when transforming, and they have quicker recovery time after bumping into walls. This one is fun enough to be a part of the top 100. Storm Chasers was one of the only battle minigames from Mario Party 3 I actually liked. I really like the more detailed arena for the 3DS remake. So yep, it's another one for the top list. I never liked Chip Shot Challenge from the original, but I do like the improved visuals in the remake. I also like how we can press the X button to skip watching the CPU's turns. Why can't this feature be used in other Mario Party games? That is so useful. It makes the game go by so much quicker. It still did nothing to give us visual clues on the level or angles we need to properly aim in order to get our balls into the hole. So it really drags this game down. I never liked it originally and I still don't like it. I like the visuals of Ice Rink Risk a lot better in the original, along with the music, but I do like the controls a lot better on the 3DS version. It felt impossible to run or make a sharp U-turn on the N64, but it's now possible to do that on the 3DS, so yeah, I do think this one is worthy of the top 100. The Beat Goes On is an infamous minigame that many fans have vocally shared their hatred of, so why is this one even in the top 100? The visuals are a huge improvement, especially since the original orange tribal guys were just sprites and now they're actually 3D modeled. But the music has less of a punch than the brass and bongo sounds from the original version. Three Dwarf Monty was such a forgettable memory quiz. I like the scenery better in the original. The remake just looks so unnecessarily oversaturated. On to the Mario Party 4 minigames. Now, it's safe to say that most of the visuals for the 3DS version will look bad compared to Mario Party 4, for it was one of the most detailed looking entries in the series, and the 3DS wasn't as visually powerful as the GameCube. Booksquirm obviously will look a lot better on the GameCube with its more realistic color choices. I also love how fluffy the feather pen looks compared to the barely noticeable white feather model in the corner of this one. The controls and animation for the 3DS one feel so much choppier than they did on the GameCube. Otherwise, it's still a decent minigame worthy of the list. Trace Race looked and played a lot better on the GameCube with the more realistic shadows and having the crayon colors match the characters. Also, the drawing controls were easier to master, where the 3DS's circle pad limitates how much we can move the controller, so it makes it so much harder to draw like the curves and the circles. It's still a great minigame worthy of the list. Visually, 3-Throw looks very faithful to the GameCube version, with the only downside being that the characters' basketballs no longer match their color schemes. Otherwise, it is a worthy one. Mario Speedwagon looks so much worse on the 3DS. The vehicles have less personality, everything is much brighter and blander and less detailed. I just never liked this one. Paths of Peril looked and played so much better on the GameCube. I hate how piss yellow the cliffs are, and I hate how the ground looks more like it's made of orange vomit than dirt. The controls are so much worse with the circle pad compared to the GameCube's control stick. Otherwise, it's still a fun and tricky narrow race. On to Mario Party 5's 4-player minigames. Coney Island is my favorite minigame from that entry, and since Mario Party 5 is my all-time favorite entry, you know it's going to be on the top 100. My only complaint with the 3DS version is that the ice cream no longer looks appetizing. Seriously, what happened to the colors? The green ice cream looked like it was mint on the GameCube, and now it looks like slime on the 3DS. And the chocolate ice cream looks like crap now. It's still a very fun minigame. Pushy Penguins legit looks better on the 3DS with more shiny and rippling water, and everything looks less jittery. I do prefer the music from the GameCube version, but it's still a fun and chaotic minigame. It's legit crazy how many of the minigames from Mario Party 5, 6, and 7 look inferior to the graphics from Mario Party 4. The 3DS failed to make the Mario Party 4 minigames look a lot better or even as good as the original, yet many of the other GameCube minigames actually look better on the 3DS. Nightlight Fright looks so much better with its use of lighting, shading, and color. It felt like they barely used any shaders in the original GameCube version. It just made everything look kind of desaturated and like there was no shading or lighting whatsoever. Sadly, I don't consider Dumb Luck Games of Chicken to be top 100 material. Dinger Derby looks so much more colorful and the balls seem slightly easier to hit, but it's still a tricky yet fun minigame. I hate how they got rid of the detail where we could accidentally hit the balls into the crowd members though, but I still think it's top 100 material. For Leaf Leap, I think it looks visually better on the 3DS when it comes to the grass and beanstalk at least. It has less washed out colors and such, but the original had much better looking skies. The frame rate looks a lot choppier and worse on the 3DS, and it's more annoying as the sound effects are louder and the characters keep making grunts or sounds every time they jump. I prefer how much more quieter it was on the GameCube. It's still a fun platforming challenge. Triple Jump admittedly looks and plays a lot better on the 3DS with less washed out colors and less wonky looking animations of the characters hover. I'd consider this passable enough to be part of the top 100. This just reminds me of why I love Mario Party 5 the most. Just too many fun minigames. And yeah, only one bad Mario Party 5 minigame so far. That's not too bad. Later Skater looks and controls better on the 3DS as well. The ice looks more textured and glossy, like actual ice. It looked more like a wax floor on the GameCube. The controls are slightly easier. The music is much worse on the 3DS, however. There are many Mario Party minigames that are themed around racing a number of laps across a Figure 0 racetrack, but this ice skating variant of that minigame was always my favorite one of these types. So yeah, I'll give it a plus. Hotel Goomba had better colors and textures on the GameCube, and the impact from hitting the Goombas had more of a comical knockback compared to the 3DS's more stilted animations. It's still a fun set of push puzzles. Cage in Cooking looks more suitably darker on the 3DS, but the red tint shadows look kinda off to me. The minigame is a lot easier on the 3DS, giving players way more time than before to break out. But when Bowser chars a character, they no longer get burned black, which is kind of lame. It doesn't make it look as comical as it used to. It was one of the least annoying Bowser minigames, but I wouldn't call it one of the best minigames ever made, though. On to the Mario Party 6 4-player minigames. The snow in Snow World admittedly looks better on the 3DS with the bluish shadows which add to the visuals, but I like the trees and ramps a lot better on the GameCube. It's a shame that the nighttime variant wasn't an option as well. I love the aurora-filled sky from the night version, but this is still worthy of the top 100. Catch You Letter is a surprisingly faster paced one on the 3DS, which makes it even harder than it already was to return the mail to the delivery shy guy. This one does look more saturated, and I'd say it's still fun enough to be part of the top 100. I never liked Strawberry Short Fuse or any of the Dumb Luck elimination games for that matter, but I do like how the floor pattern colors looked a lot better on the original version. And how dare they remove the Okiki's adorable chef hats in the remake. Ugh. I never liked Trapeze Artist either, since it takes dumb luck to win. There are a lot of times where the Goombas barely head towards your side, so how are you supposed to win when Goombas aren't even giving you a chance? I do think the less saturated colors look better on the GameCube version in this case. Dizzy Rotisserie suitably looks darker and more vibrant than the GameCube version. Unlike the Dizzy Dancing remake, the remake of Dizzy Rotisserie oddly keeps the randomized Dizzy controls instead of just mirroring the controls, so yeah, that's kind of strange. I still think this is a pretty fun challenge though. It's actually one of the few Bowser minigames I think are good enough on their own. Now on to the Mario Party 7 4-player minigames. The water in the final countdown looks slightly better in the remake, but I prefer the cliff colors and textures from the original, but I still don't consider this a very good minigame. Monty's Revenge looks really well remade on the 3DS, with more lush looking grass and textured soil. I love how they spruced up the gameplay as well, to where we can actually move the joystick to pop our heads out of different holes, instead of being stuck to one hole throughout the entire minigame. I still consider this a very fun minigame, but how dare they cut out the funny ending with the moles actually chasing the losers away with a hammer. But yeah, I think this one is pretty good. Pokey Pummel looks so much better on the GameCube with its grittier looking rock and soil and its bluer and cloudier skies, along with its less bright and burning colors. Otherwise, it's still a tiring, repetitive button masher. Track and Yield looks too oversaturated on the remake, and do we really need arrows on the conveyor to tell us what direction they're heading? What idiot needs an arrow to let us know that, oh yeah, there's a cliff behind us, you want to avoid that? It's an okay minigame, but it's just a weaker clone of better minigames like Platform Peril. Deck Hands is another dumb luck game of pick a card. I think the darker blue background actually looks cooler on the 3DS, but I prefer the character animations from the original GameCube version. It gave a little more believability to the characters being unsure of what card to pick. Why did they have to bring back the lousy microphone minigames? Balloon Busters, really? Isn't Bowser's Big Blast torture enough? They managed to make this one even worse. At least the original minigame could end after 36 seconds when the balloon popped once. Now it's an elimination game that takes nearly over 2 minutes to beat on the 3DS. So on the GameCube, after surviving blowing air into the balloon, that player would hide behind a shield, where if the next player pops the balloon, they and the other 2 players will get knocked out, while the guy behind the shield survives, and they win. But now everyone but the inflator hides behind the shield, so it makes this torturous minigame drag on even longer. Dart Attack is yet another terrible mic minigame. I don't have much to say, except the GameCube version has better looking contrast with the floor tiles, and the targets were actually easier to hit. On to Mario Party 8. Once again, this was one of the most detailed looking entries in the series, so the 3DS remakes will once again look pale in comparison. Crank to Rank may not look as visually detailed as the entry from Wii, but it's not a bad attempt. It still has a lot of detail to it. So instead of using motion controls to crank the flagpole up, we use the touchscreen to draw circles to raise the flag. Not as fun as the Wii version, to be honest, considering how Mario Party 8 was the first entry to use motion controls. This was the first minigame to require rotating the Wii Remote like a crank, which was kind of fun. It was very different. There were clones of this gameplay used in later entries, but for being the first of its kind, I'll consider it worthy of the top 100. At the Chomp Wash no longer uses motion controls and has us washing the Chain Chomp by wiping it with the touchscreen. It honestly works a lot better than waving the Wii Remote in thin air. I'm kind of bummed that they cut out the intro where it showed our players painting a house before the Chain Chomp made a mess. So it kind of takes away a bit of the personality from the original minigame. But I love the little detail they added where after cleaning up the Chomp, it actually looks happy and grateful for what we did for it. So that's really cute. I'd consider this a top 100 game. Aim of the game was an okay battle and duel minigame for Mario Party 8, but it's not as fun on the 3DS. Not only does the game not work as well when moving around with a circle pad and A button, the original, it allowed us to point and shoot with the Wii Remote. That felt a lot better and more suitable. The cards spin a lot slower on the 3DS version, and they don't scatter around as much as they did on the Wii version, so it's a lot worse than the Wii version, but even then, it was an okay minigame, but I don't think it was really top 100 material. On to the 4-player minigames from Mario Party 9. Loggerheads was a decent quick-time minigame, but it worked better axing by swinging the Wii Remote compared to pressing the A button. I suppose it's still good enough, though. Bumper Bubbles was a minigame I hated, but I'll admit it actually worked better on the Wii. Not only were the Wii Remote motion controls better than the 3DS's lousy gyro controls, but the game's widescreen support allowed for more balloons to appear on screen at once. So it feels more limited on the 3DS's smaller screen. The animation looks and moves a lot more choppier on the 3DS, so yeah, this one does not get a pass from me. Don't Look definitely looks better on the Wii, mainly due to the better looking player models, but it works so much better gameplay wise on the 3DS. We actually used the D-pad instead of motion controls. I still think it should have been shorter than 9 rounds, but I'll give it a pass. I think Peak Precision looks a lot better on the Wii, with less burning colors, along with the way that the camera tilts upward the higher we climb. It really gives off a sense of scale. The climbing animations also looked more lively on the Wii. The 3DS version just looks very stiff and choppy. And the 3DS version had to replace the 1 and 2 buttons with the A and B buttons, obviously, and they actually did spice up the difficulty on the 3DS by adding 2 more buttons that were not on the Wii Remote, including the X and Y buttons. It's still a fun mountain climbing game that requires a lot of button chaining, so yeah, it gets a pass. Magma Mayhem visually glitched out on me, but even I know that it looked a lot better on the Wii than it did on the 3DS. It's arguably easier on the 3DS, where the tilting chandelier doesn't seem to slide the characters as much as the Wii version did. Now, there have been plenty of minigames like this in the past, where the goal is to push players off of an arena, but I do feel like this is one of the more unique takes on it, one of the more fun takes on it, because it's basically the same thing, but with a tilting arena, making it a little more challenging. So, I suppose it'll do. Speeding Bullets both looks and controls a lot worse on the 3DS. It still uses motion controls, and we all know how much worse the gyro tilting on the 3DS was compared to the Wii's motion controls. The frame rate is sluggish on the 3DS. I felt like Mario Party 8 had better motion-controlled vehicle minigames than this one, so I don't consider this to be good enough to compete with other better motion-controlled minigames. Jigsaw Jumble is admittedly better on the 3DS, where we actually use the touchscreen to complete the puzzle instead of pointing and clicking with the Wii Remote to drag and drop the pieces. I do like this minigame, but I don't think I'd consider it top 100 material. The water and Pier Factor looks a lot better on the 3DS, but the dock's colors look so much worse. Why did the 3DS games have to use such burnt colors overall? Otherwise, I absolutely hate these done-to-death dumb luck minigames. Goomba Bowling looks and plays a lot better on the Wii. It's more fun with the motion controls compared to just pressing the A button to bowl. The 3DS version does let us skip the CPU player's turns though, so that's a nice touch. It's an okay minigame, but I wouldn't consider it top 100 material. Flash Forward is one of the only few minigames from Mario Party 10 to appear in this game. Visually, it looks worse, but Mario Party 10 was the only entry in HD, so of course it's going to look worse on a console that can't even come close to HD visuals. The gameplay is the same as before. The novelty of fighting over getting a picture taken is still as fun and hilarious as ever, but it's less funny on the 3DS since the character models aren't as expressive as their HD models. I'll still say it's a pretty decent minigame though. Sword to Score was one of the most overplayed and annoying minigames for me in Mario Party 10, so of course I'm not putting it on this list. It's more colorful but less shiny on the 3DS. The frame rate is even worse, but at least we can actually skip the CPU turns this time around. Onto 1 vs 3. Sadly, there's barely any in this game, and the same goes for 2 vs 2. So let's start off from one of the ones from the first game. Tug of War from Mario Party admittedly looks better on the 3DS with its prettier sunset visuals, but it still uses the tiring gameplay of rotating the circle pad as fast as we can. Now I'm shocked they didn't give it touchscreen control options where we could keep drawing in circles to pull on the rope. So yeah, either way, I never really cared for this one. Piranha's Pursuit replaced the creepy running piranha plant with PD Piranha. It honestly feels dumbed down on the 3DS. There's less noticeable rain. PD doesn't grow as large or frequently as the original piranha plant, and we barely see PD trying to bite the skateboarder, making him feel less threatening. The music is less ominous than the track used on the N64, and instead it uses unfitting music from the Ice Rink Risk minigame from Mario Party 3. The 3DS version just feels so much slower and easier, but at least swinging on the vines feels a bit more responsive this time. But yeah, I do prefer the N64 version in comparison, but I wouldn't call it a very good minigame either way. There are no 1 vs 3 games from Mario Party 2 in this collection, but there's only one from Mario Party 3. Tidal Toss admittedly looks a lot better on the 3DS, with more clear and shimmering water and a more detailed looking mountain. I do consider this one of the better 1 vs 3 minigames. From Mario Party 4, we have Blame It on the Crane. It's just a bit more saturated on the 3DS, but the movement feels less smooth. I never really liked this one. Goal has better looking grass on the 3DS, but there's a few visual differences. The Goal has square holes for the net, while the 3DS version used hexagon-shaped holes. The crowd looks a lot smaller on the 3DS, and they got rid of the Nintendo and Hudson ads on the soccer field. I mean, the Hudson one makes sense, because unfortunately Hudson went out of business by this time, but I'm surprised Nintendo didn't feel comfortable advertising their own name. So, the music isn't as good as it was on the 3DS, but I'd still consider this a pretty decent minigame. Hide and Go Boom admittedly has much smoother looking textures on the 3DS, but I do prefer the more realistic color palette from the GameCube version. But yeah, either way, I hate dumb luck minigames. Onto Mario Party 5. Heat Stroke is honestly the worst 1 vs 3 minigame ever made, despite coming from the best entry in the series. Visually, it looks uglier on the 3DS. Why does the sun look like it's dying, for crying out loud? Squared Away has a bunch of differences. Now in the original, the tiles were shaped like a heart, but are now shaped like Mario as he appeared in the original Donkey Kong arcade game. The flowers admittedly look better on 3DS, but they got rid of the thwomps in the background. The music and sound effects were a lot better on the GameCube. The 3DS no longer uses the clanking sounds when the blocks roll around, instead uses these lighter squishing sounds. It just doesn't fit the minigame well at all. Worst of all, they got rid of the hilarious ending where the minigame cuts off right before the loser trips and gets crushed by thwomps. So despite being inferior on the 3DS, it's still a solid 1 vs 3 challenge. 2-Bit or Lose It does look more colorful on the 3DS, but it controls a lot worse. The big inner tube doesn't gain as much speed as before, and its turning feels a lot stiffer. It was not remade well at all on the 3DS, but I'd still say it's fun enough to deserve to be in the top 100. Onto Mario Party 6. Crate and Peril looks more saturated on the 3DS, and has been redesigned to work with tilting the 3DS to slide the spinies inside the box. I feel like this would have worked better if it was remade for the Wii or Wii U instead. The original version had a useless need to have a split screen so it could show the player that's holding the box. That felt so unnecessary. What was wrong with just having it be a first-person game throughout? The 3DS made this easier by having the single player on the top screen, while the touchscreen shows the box that they're tilting. So it does look a lot better on the 3DS, but the split screen still feels very pointless overall. Why do we need to stare at the players blankly standing around holding a box? It adds nothing to the gameplay. I'll still say it's a decent minigame overall. Onto Mario Party 7 with Pogo A Go Go. This is another one of the worst 1 vs 3 minigames I've ever seen. It feels very unfair for the 3-player side. I think it looks a lot better on the GameCube, where it had mistier looking clouds and a greater sense of depth. It also cut out the opening cutscene with the helicopter flying overhead. Yeah, it's a pretty lame and frustrating minigame. There are no minigames from Mario Party 8 on this 1 vs 3 list, so onto Mario Party 9 with Tackle Takedown. The 3DS version admittedly has better textures and it controls a lot better, since we're moving the characters with the circle pad instead of the D-pad. It's decent. On to 2 vs 2, starting with the first entry. Desert Dash does look a lot better on the 3DS with better sunset lighting and ground textures. The blue thwomps were replaced with the classic gray spiked thwomps from the original Mario games. The characters are much harder to see under all this more detailed sunset lighting. It's more annoying on the 3DS since the characters keep shouting every time you move left or right. I wouldn't really consider this a fun minigame though, it's just easy and boring overall. From Mario Party 2, we have Handcar Haylock. It looks a lot better on the 3DS with less fog and more draw distance. The sound effects are also an improvement, but it feels more sluggish than before, not as fast paced. I always preferred the Mario Party 2 version of this minigame compared to the more brutal Mario Party 1 version. I guess it's still a good enough minigame. Speed Hockey plays about the same as before. The CPU are still no help. I do like the sound effects and music from the original one a lot better, and for some reason it uses music from Mario Party 3 instead on the remake. Now this one can be fun to play with friends, but I don't consider it one of the best minigames. Cake Factory mostly plays the same, except we now only press the A button to pick up and let go of the cake or strawberries, where originally we had to hold and release the A button to pick them up. The conveyor belts are now pink and blue instead of yellow and pink. The cake and strawberries may use actual 3D models now, but they somehow looked even more appetizing on the N64. The cake icons were much more detailed on the N64 as well. They were much more simplified on the 3DS. So this was my favorite 2 vs 2 minigame from Mario Party 2, and I do think it's good enough to be on the list. Looney Lumberjacks looks more detailed on the 3DS, and it uses more realistic sawing sound effects. The music sounds worse on the 3DS though, but overall I really do like this one, as simple as it is. Onto Mario Party 3 with Itza Pizza. The scenery looks more detailed on the 3DS, and the pizza itself looks even tastier than before. The music is very different though. I like the quirkier tune from the original game better. There's even the addition of gulping sounds as the characters eat through the pizza on the remake. So this was my favorite 2 vs 2 minigame from Mario Party 3, so it does get a plus from me. From Mario Party 4, we have the Great Deflate. I think the GameCube version is better in every way. The scenery looks more realistic and relaxing, like you really want a vacation there. The sound effects are so much better, as we actually hear air being pounded out of the inflatables, along with the comical thwomp sound effects as they get crushed. On the 3DS, it makes these distracting wobbling sound effects instead. The deflating animations on the GameCube look so much better as well. You can really see just the air getting sucked out of these things, and you don't really see much of an impact when looking at the 3DS version. Admittedly, the inflatables do look a bit too overly glossy on the GameCube. They look more like they're made of jello than pool toy material, but it's still a decent minigame overall. Reverse a Bomb is very similar on both consoles, but the 3DS uses louder sound effects. I honestly preferred the quieter sound effects from the GameCube version, but it's still a pretty good one. Order Up mostly looks and plays the same, but the GameCube version looks less shiny, and the 3DS version got rid of the welcome mat and the trash can at the bottom right. I think the food looked tastier on the GameCube version though, but yeah, I never really liked this minigame. I'm just not a big fan of memory matchup or memory games, so yeah. Onto Mario Party 5 with Defuse or Lose. I think it was called Defuse It or Lose It on the GameCube, so the name was simplified for the 3DS remake. Admittedly, it looks a lot better on the 3DS. The King Bob-omb looks more well-defined with a more detailed and higher poly mustache, narrower eyes, and a more detailed crown, and overall better animations. The background is drastically different. I have no idea what was going on in the original. It's clearly some kind of dream world, but why does the ground have such an ugly texture? Is that supposed to be grass? Why does it look like it has a thin layer of TV noise over it? So it was rethemed drastically on the 3DS to look like a brick castle courtyard, very fit for a king. So yeah, this is still a very fun minigame overall. As for Manic Mallets, I think it's too oversaturated on the 3DS. It's still a tiring button masher like so many other minigames, with nothing new to offer. Onto Mario Party 6 with Rocky Road. I like the visuals a lot better on the GameCube. It's less oversaturated, it's got better textures, and better looking water, but the rocks look like turds on the 3DS. The destruction looks more satisfying on the GameCube. The CPU are still slow and useless, but at least they're actually running towards the rock now and actually hitting it, instead of just standing back doing nothing. It's still a very tedious minigame though. Slot Trot had better sounding sound effects on the GameCube version, but the 3DS version admittedly has more decent animations of the characters running on the slots. The CPU are more cooperative this time around, but I was still never really a big fan of this one. Onto Mario Party 7 with Sphere Factor. It looks more saturated and textured on the 3DS, though the soil looks more like sand than dirt this time around. The CPU are much more helpful this time around, while the CPU were terrible in the original version. It was still a very fun concept for playing with friends, so I'll give it a pass. Mario Party the Top 100 has the saddest collection of dual minigames. There's only 4. It makes you wonder why they even bothered. So Vine With Me from Mario Party 4 visually looks so much better, with more detailed looking trees and vines, but how dare they get rid of the giant piranha plant from the beginning. This was my favorite dual minigame from Mario Party 3, so it gets a plus from me. I have no idea why Careening Koopas from Mario Party 4 is on here. It wasn't even a dual minigame, it was a boss fight against Koopa. I like the design better on the original with the more detailed looking room, especially with the Koopa patterned floorboards. That was such a cute little touch. This one changed the gameplay by now using motion controls. Again, if it was on the Wii or Wii U, it might have been more fun. So it was one of the more tolerable boss minigames from Mario Party 4, but I wouldn't really consider it one of the best minigames ever made. Shy Guy Showdown from Mario Party 5 does look better on the 3DS, but it's still a very typical game of quick draw with random button prompts, nothing special. Button Mashers overall looks a lot better on the 3DS, but the blocks have such ridiculously strong textures. I prefer the softer looking textures from the GameCube version. The sound effects are more distracting in the 3DS version though, with the cartoony wobbling sounds that the characters make as they start aching. So it's still one of the most fun and craziest spins on the button mashing minigames. I normally don't like button mashing minigames, but I'll give this one a pass because it's so much fun with how you're not just button mashing one throughout. You gotta keep like adding onto them. You gotta keep piling them on top of each other, which makes it so tricky and uncomfortable, but so funny because you see the characters struggling as much as you are, and I'll give it a pass. And finally, we're onto the special minigames, mostly being single-player minigames. So Block Star from Mario Party 6 is honestly my least favorite puzzle game from the entire series. Now, it's not bad, it's just not as fun as the other puzzle games across the series. There were so many better puzzle games more worthy of being on the top 100. It visually looks worse on the 3DS with smaller and darker colored blocks. This one just doesn't get a pass from me. Stick and Spin was one of the only few things I actually enjoyed from Mario Party 7. It's basically the same on the 3DS, but with more saturation. I do consider it one of the best minigames. Jewel Drop was the Hidden Jewel minigame from Mario Party 10. Best part of the whole game in my opinion. Sadly, the minigame did not translate well on the 3DS. The colors look way too burnt, the music isn't as good, I really missed the harmonica solo from the original. Worst of all, they messed up the gimmick of shaking the controller to shuffle all the gems around in hopes of clearing them out. It works so well with the Wii U gamepad or even the Wii remote, but it does not do a good job at shaking the gems around with the 3DS's gyro controls. My only complaint about the Wii U version was that it had a ridiculously small screen ratio. The small screen ratio felt so unnecessary, but it's still bigger than the 3DS screen at least, so I'd rather play the original Wii U version of this. I still consider this a great minigame though, it truly is a hidden gem. Beach Volleyball from Mario Party 5 was renamed to Beach Volley Folly on the 3DS for some reason. It visually looks better, but it plays so much worse on the 3DS. The volleying is way too slow and weak. And there are times where spiking the ball is unresponsive. It's like I'm aiming and pressing the A button, and the character just doesn't spike it. It's like, what the heck? They got rid of the side modes where we could play with a bomb or a dice block that grants us bonus points depending on the number that lands when the ball hits the ground. It was given a lot of disservice on the 3DS. I never found it great to begin with, but it's so much worse on the 3DS. If you want a better volleyball game, just play Mario Sports Mix instead. Ice Hockey from Mario Party 5 got disserviced on the 3DS as well. It does visually look better with glossier ice and even scratch marks from ice skates, but the gameplay is so much slower. Again, there are better hockey video games out there, making this feel like a dull minigame in comparison. Badminton Bash from Mario Party 10 looks and plays very similarly to the Wii U version, but it admittedly controls better on the 3DS, using circle pad controls instead of uncomfortable D-pad controls. Hitting the birdie does feel a bit more responsive this time around. We're allowed to play a short 7-point game instead of a full 21-point game like on the Wii U version. Otherwise, it's still nothing special. Only 2 of the Donkey Kong minigames appear in this game, both of which were from Mario Party 7. So Jumpman was one of the better DK minigames, being a nice tribute to the game that gave Donkey Kong and Mario their start. Visually, it looks more textured and vibrant on the 3DS, but I question why they didn't just remake this into a dual minigame. Why do we have to race against a CPU of Donkey Kong when it have made more sense to make this a one-on-one minigame so you can actually have a second player play it? I still consider it fun enough to be a really good minigame though. Vine Country plays about the same, but the trees look more textured and twisted. It's an okay minigame, but I wouldn't call it one of the greatest. And finally, we have the final battle from Mario Party 4. Considering how Mario Party 4 visually looked a lot better on the GameCube, I'm shocked that the 3DS version of this minigame actually looks better. The lava looks better, there's more suitable lighting and shading on the characters that actually reflect the lava surroundings, the sky looks cooler, they replaced Koopa Kid with Bowser Jr. While this minigame could be considered very easy for most older gamers, it was still a fun yet tough challenge for the small kids playing this game. So it made for a very memorable final battle in Mario Party 4, so I'll give it a pass. And with all of that, in my opinion, Mario Party the Top 100 has 51 minigames that I consider worthy of being in this game, barely more than half of the minigames included. While I found 49 of them to be very undeserving, there are at least 49 other minigames across the first 10 games that were more deserving to be in this game. Yet Nintendo keeps fooling themselves into thinking that people love the dumb luck generic minigames, or the button mashers. I'll never understand the decisions that that company makes. So while this game does have at least 51 minigames worth playing, it doesn't change the fact that all 10 of the games that these minigames originated from are much better games than this. Even the lesser Mario Party games have more to see and do or offer, compared to this letdown of a game. Now, Mario Party the Top 100 is not for, say, a terrible game. Like, if this was the first Mario game you ever played, you might find it very enjoyable. But it will feel very pale in comparison if you play other Mario games down the line, and it will make this one look very weak in comparison. It just goes to show that a random grab bag of minigames is not what makes the Mario Party franchise so fun and memorable for many players. So I'm putting Mario Party the Top 100 on the bottom of the D tier list. I am positive that nothing will change my mind about this, because the next 2 Mario Party games I have to review are so much better than this game, so I'm positive that this will remain as the biggest letdown in Mario Party history. Luckily, Nintendo would retry this idea again a few years later with the second entry on Switch called Mario Party Superstars, which many fans treat as Nintendo's apology for the disappointment that was Mario Party the Top 100. Superstars brought back even more remade minigames, equaling to 105 minigames total. This time they're remade with HD graphics, and it even includes many of the minigames included from the Top 100. It also includes 5 remade board maps from the classic N64 trilogy, with 2 board maps from the first game, 2 from the second, and 1 from the third entry. It was overall a much better game than the Top 100, but I'll get to that one later. You know the Top 100 was bad when Nintendo decided that the next Mario Party game they needed to make had to be a reboot. Yep, they flat out rebooted the franchise. They didn't call it Mario Party 11, they started completely over. So next time, I'll be reviewing the first entry on Switch, which was the biggest comeback the series has ever gotten, also being the largest selling entry in the series. So join me next time when I look at Super Mario Party. That's all I have to show for now. Thank you for watching, see you next time, and have a great day.